What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 4 Chapter 61. Yenyan fruit. After Luo Te and his companions boarded the boat, they saw Franky lying quietly on the lawn, blowing bubbles from his nose. Enel casually made a small lightning bolt fall on Franky's body. Pop! The snot bubble burst instantly, and Franky's body began to shake. Oh, what's wrong? What's wrong? Am I punished by God? Franky sat up again with a start, looked at the charred black on his body and looked around again. He realized that he was in a strange place, and Luo Te and his companions were standing in front of him. Where is this? Where do you think this is? Luo Te said. Franky's eyes began to focus, and he saw Luo Te in front of him clearly. Could it be your ship, the Skybreaker? Luo Te nodded and said, it seems that you are not too stupid. Franky's mind gradually became clear this time. Are you going to sea? Wait, let me go first. I want to stay in the Seven Water City. Luo Te did not stop Franky, and let Franky run to the side of the ship, and as a result, he saw a huge package flying towards his face. Bang! Franky was knocked to the ground before he could dodge. Goodbye, brother Franky. Be well on Lord Luo Te's boat. When Franky got up, he saw a group of younger brothers waving goodbye to him on the shore. Unlike usual, this group of younger brothers no longer wore the pervert-like black metal bags. Instead, they all changed into cool shirts and shorts. A group of gangsters looked different in this way. What? Franky pounded on the side of the boat, looking at his younger brothers angrily. Are you still members of Franky's family? Is this how you treat your brother? At this moment, the crowd parted and made way, and Ace Bagu was seen walking towards the Skybreaker in a coat. He touched the little mouse in his chest pocket and said, well, what's going on? Are you leaving so soon? However, the younger brothers of Franky's family bowed to Ace Bagu and said, big brother. Franky was stunned when he saw this scene. Hey, what are you doing? Your big brother is here. However, one of the younger brothers said, Franky-san, our big brother is now Ace Bagu. Why? Franky couldn't believe why the younger brothers who were Franky's family yesterday turned into Ace Bagu's people now. Luo Te walked aside, looked at Ace Bagu and said, Ace Bagu-san, we will leave first. If you need anything, call us with Den Den Mushi. Ace Bagu clenched his fists, nodded and responded, okay, I will take care of the Seven Water City. Luo Te thought of the long talk with Ace Bagu last night. Ace Bagu told Luo Te about Aquarican and said that he had a dream to turn the Seven Water City into a ship. Luo Te told Ace Bagu about his plans and the planning of the territory, etc. Finally, the two hit it off. Luo Te patted Franky on the shoulder. Let's go, don't worry about it. Franky turned his head and looked at Luo Te. I. Luo Te looked at Franky and said solemnly, come to my ship and be the chief engineer of our Sha country. Franky was stunned for a few seconds, then said, since you said so, I will reluctantly do it. Ding. Congratulations host, the progress of the task of finding a partner +1, and get rewards. Memory alloy *1. Devil fruit side effect elimination card *1. Never worn thong *1. Red high heels *1. Senzu beans *2000. Listening to the mechanical sound in his mind, Luo Te's eyes condensed and the whole person almost screamed out. Isn't the devil fruit side effect elimination card exactly what he wants? If this card is given to Nami at that time, many plans can be put on the agenda. It seems that this Franky is really his lucky star. Franky felt that Luo Te's gaze on him was a little strange, so he quickly covered his chest and buttocks. Hey, what do you want to do to me? I'm a pervert, not a back mountain. Luo Te came back to his senses, felt sick, and kicked Franky. Bang, I'm a serious man, male, and I like women. Nami, how do you feel? In the sea, Luo Te was helping Nami swim. Luo Te, I don't seem to be afraid of the seawater anymore. Nami hugged Luo Te excitedly. I can finally swim again. After saying that, she threw Luo Te and swam away. Luo Te had just used the devil fruit side effect elimination card on Nami, and now of course he came to verify it. However, seeing the same effect as his own, Luo Te was also very happy. Turning his head to look at the island next to him, he murmured, then use this island to try the power of the Yenyan fruit. The island was already full of yellow sand and thunder and lightning, and it was Crocodile and Enel who were practicing. There was also a clanging sound coming from the Skybreaker docked on the shore. It was Franky who was transforming his body after getting the memory alloy. Nami swam in the water for a long time before going ashore, but she hadn't changed her bikini yet, so she ran to Luo Te and kissed him hard on the face. Luo Te, thank you for letting me experience the joy of swimming again. Looking at Nami's curvy body, Luo Te's heart beat faster. He quickly turned his eyes and said, Nami, we are going to do an experiment next. Nami nodded and looked at the island that had turned into half lightning and half desert. Crocodile and Enel had finished fighting and returned to the Skybreaker. Nami turned directly into a white cloud and floated above the island. Luo Te also flew over the island. Looking at Nami on the side, he said, let's start. Nami nodded. Crocodile stood on the side of the ship and looked at the two people in the sky. Has it started? Enel ate a fairy bean, and now he was no longer bruised and swollen. He looked at the scene in front of him with a serious expression. Luo Te activated the electromagnetic force to separate the island and slowly lifted it up. Then Nami made a large island cloud at the bottom of the island, holding the entire island steadily. Luo Te asked, "Is it okay, Nami? I'm loose." After getting a positive reply from Nami, Luo Te released the electromagnetic force. The island sat steadily on the island cloud, and Nami controlled the island to float on the sea, just like an air cushion boat. Thanks to the Yenyan fruit, which has no side effects, even if half of the island cloud is in the sea, it is not released. Crocodile saw this scene and exhaled a deep puff of smoke. Success. Enel also said with an unbelievable expression, "It really succeeded." Nami ran to Luo Te's arms, hugged Luo Te's waist, and was as excited as a child. Luo Te stroked Nami's head, but his face was full of concern. "Nami, aren't you tired of holding up such a big island?" Nami shook her little head in Luo Te's arms. "Not tired. I didn't contribute after creating the island cloud. Now no matter where I go, it won't affect the island cloud." "Nami, you are awesome. Luo Te, how are you going to reward me?" Chapter 62. Back to Sky Island. The sun shines into Nami's eyes, blends into the starlight, and turns into affectionate eyes that shoot into Luo Te's eyes. Ahem. Luo Te turned his head and coughed awkwardly a few times. "There are people watching over there?" As he said that, Luo Te pointed at the skybreaker. Nami pouted and said, "Humph, it's really annoying." Then he let go of Luo Te. Luo Te pressed little Luo Te imperceptibly, and complained in his heart. "Are people in the pirate world so precocious? If I hadn't been so strong, I might have violated the law. It's really hard to bear." After calming down a little, Luo Te said to Nami, "Let's go back to the skybreaker first." Nami's legs went weak and her figure staggered slightly. Luo Te quickly reached out and picked up Nami and flew to the skybreaker. He also fed a senzu bean into Nami's mouth. "Nami, are you okay? Did you just use up too much energy?" Nami rubbed her head in Luo Te's arms, found a comfortable position, and said, "Yeah." However, Luo Te did not see the cunning flash across Nami's face. Nami got off Luo Te's arms as soon as she returned to the skybreaker, and was still complaining in her heart. "Why didn't you hold me for a while longer?" Ever since she saw the look in Luo Te's eyes when he looked at Khalifa, Nami now has a strong sense of crisis, and is afraid that Luo Te will be snatched away by another woman at that time. She is now determined to speed up the progress and lock Luo Te firmly by her side, at most. "I can accept Linger, if Robin wants it too, that's fine." Nami planned in her heart. "Now that the experiment is successful, we have to put the plan on the agenda. Let's put Sky Island together first." Luo Te's eyes swept over the faces of several people, and they all nodded. Crocodile was excited. It seems that it won't take long to go to New World. Then his expression turned gloomy again. "I'm going to see that old man Whitebeard again soon, my enemy." Enel. "Yeah, ha 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 ha, 4 emperors. You will all become stepping stones for God." Luo Te's mouth also raised an arc. "Let's go to Guy Island first." Nami nodded and waved to create an island cloud between the skybreaker and the sea, and controlled the skybreaker to quickly fly towards Guy Island. "Salvage. Salvage. Is the sunken ship just now in this position?" "Yes, boss. Is boss calling me?" "Yes. All the sunken ships belong to our pirate group." As soon as they arrived at the waters of Guy Island, Luo Te and others saw a strange ship salvaging something on the sea. Although Kurik knew that the Golden Country was on Sky Island, his 2 younger brothers still kept the habit of salvaging sunken ships. The 2 younger brothers explained that since the Golden Country is on Sky Island, there must be gold on the ship that fell from Sky Island. If they salvage it, it will be their wealth. Nami looked at the scene in front of her with some surprise, and said to Luo Te, "Do you want to tell them?" Luo Te shook his head and said, "If I explain to everyone, I will be exhausted." After that, Luo Te flew directly over the entire Guy Island, and used electromagnetic force to bless his sound waves to notify everyone on Guy Island, "I am Luo Te, the god of Sky Island, that is, the god of the other half of this island. I am here to inform you that in 2 days there will be a rushing sea current that will send this island to the sky above 10,000 meters. I am here to save you. So you have 1 day." Luo Te used electromagnetic force to sense it, and at this time the island was in chaos. Everyone was preparing for the upcoming natural disaster. Some residents used Den Den Mushi to notify their family members outside, some dragged their fishing boats ashore, and some ran into the house and never came out again. Luo Te nodded with satisfaction and returned to the skybreaker in an instant. Seeing what Luo Te did, Enel took a bite of the apple. "I say, just move this island up to the sky, why bother so much?" Luo Te shook his head. "We don't want the island or the land, but the people, understand?" The next afternoon, Luo Te and Nami were suspended above Guy Island. "Ready." Sensing everything below, he nodded and said to Nami, "Let's get started." Then Luo Te activated the electromagnetic force to slowly separate Guy Island from the seabed. Boom! In an instant, the entire Guy Island shook. Everyone on the island also exclaimed, Luo Te controlled Guy Island to lift up at a very slow speed. It took a while for the bottom of Guy Island to reach the sea surface, and at this time Guy Island had risen to a height of more than 30 meters. Nami quickly waved her hand to generate a thick layer of island cloud at the bottom of Guy Island, and slowly lifted Guy Island to fly upward. In the middle of the journey, Nami also thickened the thickness of the island cloud. After a little sensing, Nami nodded to Luo Te. Luo Te, it's okay. After receiving Nami's signal, Luo Te slowly released his electromagnetic force, and saw that Guy Island slowly sank into the island cloud. Te looked at the island with some worry, wondering if these clouds could bear the weight of such a large island. However, when Luo Te completely released his electromagnetic force, Guy Island just sank to the position of the seawater before. Turning his head to look at Nami, he saw that Nami's temples were already sweating. Quickly appeared beside Nami in an instant and fed her a fairy bean. How is it, Nami? Nami's face was a little pale, and she shook her head and said, it's just that I was a little exhausted from making so many island clouds just now, but now I'm fine. Luo Te rubbed Nami's head with some heartache. Thank you for your hard work, it will be easy next time, right? Nami nodded. Luo Te took Nami back to the skybreaker. He waved his hand and moved the skybreaker to the island cloud of Guy Island and stopped. Guy Island has been successfully lifted and suspended. Now it only takes a little force to transport Guy Island to the side of Sky Island. Considering that there are still ordinary residents on the island, Nami is not in a hurry, but lifts Guy Island up at a very slow speed. It took nearly 2 hours to cover a distance of 10,000 meters. Just when Guy Island was approaching Sky Island, Luo Te appeared above Sky Island in an instant. Clearing his throat, he informed the people below. Hello everyone, I am Luo Te. There may be a little shaking in a while, don't panic, it may only take a few minutes, and I will explain to everyone then. Then he teleported to the skybreaker and said to Nami, okay, let's start. The pressurized island was like a missing puzzle piece, slowly buckled next to Sky Island. Rumble. The two islands were connected together, and a slight shaking spread throughout the island. Although the edges of the two islands have been eroded by time and have changed over the years, they are still perfectly combined overall. It took a while for the shaking to stop. Luo Te flew up to the sky and explained to everyone. The residents on the two islands heard Luo Te's explanation and shouted, awesome. Everyone walked out of the door and ran towards the coast curiously. Luo Te controlled the skybreaker and flew quickly towards the shrine. Luo Te. As soon as he arrived at the shrine, a ball of fire floated to the skybreaker and turned into a girl hugging Luo Te. At this time, Luo Te's eyes were full of falling flowers, turning into a mature woman. Chapter 63. All members go out to sea. Robin looked at the man in front of her, and a strong feeling of longing surged in her heart. Her longing was no less than Linger's, but she did not choose to hug Luo Te directly. Nami, who was standing by, couldn't help but feel a little sour when she saw Linger hanging on Luo Te. Even if she could accept Linger and Robin, who wouldn't want their man to only favor themselves, even though Luo Te was not their man yet. Luo Te grabbed Linger's collar and gently put him on the deck, then looked up at Robin. Long time no see, Robin, Linger. Robin nodded calmly, just showing a faint smile. Luo Te controlled the skybreaker and slowly stopped in the square in front of the shrine. At night, inside the shrine. Luo Te, do you mean that we can go to New World soon? Klo sat aside and was a little excited. He had heard Luo Te talk about New World a long time ago, and knew that it was a place where there were hidden dragons and crouching tigers, and where there were all kinds of people. There are the 4 emperors who are powerful and occupy one side, the newspaper-reading king who is mixed in the dark world, the news agency that has the information of the entire Grand Line, the great secret treasure One Piece, etc. He can also feel that with the current strength of the Luo Te pirates, only that world can show their fists and feet. Hearing this, the others also looked at Luo Te with hope. Luo Te nodded without hiding. Yes, our plan can be advanced. Everyone was happy to get Luo Te's affirmative reply. Zoro tightened the Wado Ichimonji in his hand and murmured, the great swordsman Hawkeye Mahawk. I wonder how big the gap in our strength is now. Robin's expression also showed a rare fluctuation. Gon Fowl and the chief naturally could not feel the excitement of Zoro and others at this time. They only knew that the construction of Sky Island would also speed up. Luo Te continued. The island we just brought up was originally the same island as Sky Island. I should have told you before. Everyone nodded. Chief, take Wappa to Guy Island. You should know what to do. The chief and Wappa nodded. I know, God. Looking at Wappa's eagerness, Luo Te was really worried, fearing that this hot-tempered man would fight with the people above him. He could only remind him, Wappa, obey the chief's arrangements. We are not going to fight. Guy Island can also be regarded as your ancestral land. Then he looked at Gon Fuer. Gon Fuer, you will temporarily take over the chief's previous work. When Guy Island is stable, we will make long-term plans. Gon Fuer nodded. As if he thought of something, Luo Te pointed to Franky in the corner. This is our new partner and the chief engineering designer of Shogwo in the future. Although he is a pervert, he is a shipbuilder with excellent craftsmanship and a great inventor. After hearing Luo Te's introduction, everyone focused their attention on Franky in the corner. They all showed a weird expression because they saw that Franky was only wearing a pair of shorts. He is even more pervert than Enel. Franky stood up and did a strange dance. Baga, don't praise me like that, super. Chloe looked him up and down and said, would you be shy if you praised his skills? Franky jumped onto the table and waved his right index finger in front of Chloe. No, 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 my skills are of course the best, but please don't praise me as a pervert, I will be shy. Everyone was speechless, and they were all complaining in their hearts, what a pervert. Luo Te clapped his hands, okay, everyone, go and get busy first. After Sky Island is completely integrated, we will go to New World. The night was as cool as water. The breeze rustled the leaves, and from time to time there were a few calls of birds. Luo Te did not rest at this time, but flew over the border between Sky Island and Gaia Island. He looked at the completely different scenery on both sides. Sky Island was like an ancient, undeveloped island. Gaia Island was extremely prosperous. After a slight sense, he saw that many residents gathered at this border, and they were discussing the amazing scene in front of them. God. It's God. At this time, a Shandia man saw Luo Te in the sky and pointed at Luo Te above with some surprise. The rest of the people here also looked up and looked at Luo Te, their eyes full of admiration. It was this young man who ended their hundreds of years of war and established a country without fighting and war. Luo Te reluctantly descended, slowly landed on the ground, touched his nose awkwardly, hello. The residents of Sky Island were about to kneel down. Luo Te quickly waved his hand to lift them up. There is no need to kneel down in Sha country. The residents of Gaia Island looked at the young man in front of them with some curiosity, because they found that Luo Te was the one who announced that Gaia Island would be moved to the sky above them. Luo Te also looked at the residents of Gaia Island at this time and said, let me introduce myself. I am the god of Sky Island and the king of Sha country. Of course, you will also be my people. Of course I know that you don't care which country you belong to or who is the king. You just need a safe and prosperous living environment. Time will prove everything. When he was still in Shanghai before, he used some electromagnetic force to bewitch the people of Gaia Island. So Gaia Island can be moved to an altitude of 10,000 meters so easily. He knew that this was not a long-term solution, but he believed that with the promotion of the concept, the residents of Gaia Island would definitely belong to Sha country from the bottom of their hearts. Luo Te waved to the crowd, okay, everyone go back and rest early. After that, Luo Te disappeared on the spot. Is that the god of your Sky Island? So handsome. Of course, my dream is to marry a god. You, forget it, you don't even look at your face. Luo Te could not escape the discussion of the people behind him. He shook his head slightly and quickened his pace. Sky Island White Sea, the end of the clouds. Many senior executives of Sky Island and Gaia Island are here, just to see Luo Te and his party off. Luo Te stood at the bow. After we leave, Shagwo will be handed over to you. After New World has established a firm foothold, Sky Island will be moved there. Thank you for your hard work during this period. Gonful, Weipa and others nodded. It has been half a month since Gaia Island moved to Sky Island. During this period, the construction of Shagwo has been on the right track. Since hearing the publicity and introduction of the residents of Sky Island, the people of Gaia Island have completely integrated into this big family. In addition to Luo Te's several speeches, Luo Te's fans have spread all over the island. That's why Luo Te was relieved to take Chloe and the others away. I believe it won't be long before this island can be moved to New World. He waved to everyone, then we'll go down first. Then Nami controlled the clouds to slowly descend the skybreaker. The people of Sky Island also waved goodbye to their gods, and they turned back only when they could no longer see the skybreaker. Luo Te looked at Chloe and his group on the deck, and everyone's face was filled with excitement. After all, they were not people who lived in peace, and as pirates, their home base was naturally on the sea. The skybreaker was extremely fast, and soon they could vaguely see an island appearing on the sea in the distance. Luo Te, we're about to reach the Seven Water City, Nami notified. Chapter 64. Ace Bagu is kidnapped. Is this the Seven Water City? Looking at the magnificent water city in front of her, Linger was very excited because she smelled the smell of shopping. She sniffed and felt that the air was moist. She felt that her skin would become several degrees tenderer if she stayed there for a while longer. Crow and others were shocked. The Seven Water City was the most magnificent city they had ever seen. They also learned from Luo Te that this city, like Alabasta, was one of the territories of the Luo Te pirates. The skybreaker was slowly parked at the port by Nami. Before dropping the anchor, Linger jumped off the boat with Nami and Robin. Her movements and expressions seemed as if she hadn't been shopping for many years. Looking at the backs of the three people leaving, Luo Te curled his lips. It seems that women are like this, whether in the past life or now. Women seem to be unable to resist shopping, but fortunately, women in this world don't need men to carry their bags for them. Just when Luo Te was rejoicing, a wisp of white cloud appeared in front of him, wrapped around his hand and pulled towards the three women. **, at %%. Plus, at this moment, Zoro dropped the anchor and got off the boat. Hey, Zoro, what are you doing? Hearing Chloro's voice, Zoro slowly turned around and replied. I'm going to buy wine, what's wrong? Klo quickly teleported to Zoro's side. Let's go together. Zoro turned his head and looked at the man with the big back hair and moved to the side without leaving a trace, and said, "What? I don't want to hold hands with you." Klo was speechless. "If Luo Te hadn't told me to keep an eye on you, a person with a poor sense of direction, do you think I want to be with you?" Zoro's face turned red and he said nothing more. Luo Te was dragged onto the street by the three girls when he saw two figures approaching the four people from the waterway quickly, shouting as they ran. "Lord Luo Te, Lord Luo Te." There was obvious anxiety in their voices, and it seemed that something had happened. Luo Te's originally happy expression became gloomy at this moment. Nami and the other two also saw that something was wrong. What's wrong with Luo Te? What happened? The two quickly came to Luo Te and the other four. Luo Te naturally knew these two people, or to be more precise, these two sisters. They were Franky's two younger sisters, with iconic square-shaped hair and pointed noses, and they were Kiwi and Maz. Seeing Luo Te, the two sisters knelt down instantly. "Lord Luo Te, go and save brother Ace Bagu." Luo Te quickly helped the two sisters up, frowned, and asked, "What's going on?" Maz wiped his eyes. Mr. Ace Bagu was taken away by officials from the world government. It seems that they wanted him to build a ship. Luo Te knew something was fishy when he heard it. The facilities in the Seven Waters City were the most complete in the world. There was no need to go to other places to build ships. It seemed that Ace Bagu was captured and tortured for Pluton's drawings. He quickly asked, "Where was Ace Bagu taken to?" Maz shook his head. "I don't know. We only saw him being taken to the sea train by a group of government officials in black suits." Luo Te's thoughts turned wildly. It seemed that he was taken to Enies' lobby. "By the way, when did this happen?" "The night before yesterday," Kiwi replied. "I know. I'll go to Enies' lobby to save Ace Bagu." Hearing that Luo Te was going to save Ace Bagu, Maz and Kiwi quickly grabbed Luo Te's clothes and begged, "Lord Luo Te, please take us with you." Luo Te shook his head. "No, that place is not for sightseeing. It's where the world government tries prisoners." Kiwi shook his head. "We are not afraid." Luo Te knew what the two sisters meant, but he still shook his head and said, "If we go, we may clash with the world government agents. You are too weak. If you go, you will be a drag." But Maz wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Luo Te. "Okay, a small Enies lobby can't stop us. You go back first, we will be back in a day at most. Your current task is to go back quietly to prepare for the banquet and wait for us to bring your eldest brother back." Looking at Luo Te's eyes that could not be refused, the two sisters could only nod obediently. Then Luo Te returned to Nami and others in an instant. "What's wrong? Did something happen?" As soon as Luo Te appeared, Linger ran to Luo Te. "Ace Bagu was captured in Enies' lobby. Let's find everyone and go back to the Skybreaker together." On the Skybreaker, Franky, who was originally guarding the boat and combing his hair out of boredom, rushed to Luo Te when he heard that Ace Bagu was captured. What did you say? Ace Bagu was captured?" Zoro and others were also anxious. They had never seen Ace Bagu, but Luo Te told them all that Ace Bagu was the mayor of the Seven Waters City. Luo Te nodded and said, "Yes, but there should be no problem. We will definitely catch up if we rush over now." Franky grabbed Luo Te's shoulder and said hurriedly, "What are you waiting for? Let's go quickly." "Franky, do you still remember the direction of Enies' lobby?" Luo Te was in a hurry and did not get the eternal pointer of Enies' lobby. Of course, there would be no eternal pointer in a place like Enies' lobby. But he knew that this sea train was built by Tom's studio. As a participant in the construction, Franky should know the location of Enies' lobby. Franky nodded heavily and said, "Of course I know." Luo Te patted his shoulder. "Then you can show us the way at the bow. Nami will control the Skybreaker." Franky pointed in a direction and said, "It's this way." Nami quickly lifted the ship with clouds and flew in the direction Franky pointed. Flying is faster than sailing on the sea. In just a few hours, the Skybreaker arrived above Enies' lobby. This should be Enies' lobby. Enies' lobby is worthy of being called the never-sleeping island. Even if it is dark in other places, Enies' lobby is shining like a night pearl in the dim sunset. However, everyone has no time to appreciate the beauty of Enies' lobby. Luo Te activated the Super Heart Net to sense everything on the island. What's going on? Why are there so many agents surrounding the gate of Enies' lobby, all holding guns in their hands? Are they guarding against someone? Luo Te was a little confused about what these government agents wanted to do. He shook his head and didn't intend to think about it anymore. He could only treat it as the regular guards of Enies' lobby. At this time, Nami controlled the Skybreaker to descend at a high speed and stopped it directly in the second square. As soon as the Skybreaker stopped, a group of agents surrounded it, with countless black guns pointing at Luo Te and his group. What's going on? At this time, Klo also realized that something was wrong. These agents seem to be waiting for us here. Luo Te, who was still confused, finally understood the strangeness of the matter. "It's over, this is a trap." Linger and others looked confused. "What trap?" At this time, an agent picked up the Den Den Mushi and reported. "Report to the commander. Luo Te's group did not come in from the main gate, but came directly to the second square. Request support. Request support." Chapter 65. Luo Te's gang ambushed. Luo Te did not stop him from reporting outside, but waved his hand. Friends, we seem to have fallen into the trap of the world government. Their purpose of capturing Ace Bagu may be to deliberately lure us to rescue. Enel laughed. Yeah, ha 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 ha. What are you afraid of? No matter how he comes, we will crush him with thunder. Luo Te's eyes swept across the faces of his companions. He saw no worry or fear, but excitement. He nodded. Okay, then we will use this battle to thoroughly establish the reputation of our Luo Te pirates. After that, he jumped off the skybreaker first. Then everyone jumped off the ship one after another. In order to prevent the skybreaker from being affected, Nami controlled the clouds to rise to an altitude of 4,000 meters. Enel looked around, raised his head and had an expression of, lousy is the best in the world. Yeah ha ha ha, come on, I'm the god of thunder. Klo pushed his glasses with his signature gesture and twisted his shoulders. I haven't moved for a long time, my body seems to be rusty. Zoro tightened his hand on the hilt. Finally, I can try the new moves. Crocodile raised the scorpion hook and didn't say anything, but his eyes were clearly full of fighting spirit. Robin laughed twice. She had encountered many such scenes before, and she used flower fruit to escape before. At this moment, she looked at Luo Te, and then scanned her companions. Her eyebrows and eyes were full of happiness. She has people she loves, real companions, and she also wants to do something meaningful for the Luo Te pirates. Nami and Linger stood quietly beside Luo Te like two stars offering sacrifices to the moon. Only Franky was like a hound about to lose control. If he hadn't been pulled by Crocodile, he might have run away long ago. Crow, don't stop me. Ace Bagu is now dead or alive. I have to save him quickly. Crow shook his head and said, it's okay. You don't know the exact location of Ace Bagu now. Running over now is like looking for a needle in a haystack. But Franky also knew that running around now might not only fail to save Ace Bagu, but also lead to being scattered. Luo Te raised his hand and sucked the Den Den Mushi in the agent's hand, and asked, are you here to ambush us? The Den Den Mushi was stunned for a moment, and then turned into a sinister face. You are Luo Te, right? Ah, hot. Who put the boiling water next to my hand? Then there was a burst of ping-pong sounds. After a while, the voice sounded again. Of course, this is a death order from the 5 elders. You don't know that in order to lure you out, our CP9 spent a lot of money to catch Ace Bagu. Luo Te raised his eyebrows, his eyes sank and said, oh, my good friend Ace Bagu is okay? Someone take the rag out of Ace Bagu's mouth and let him say something. There was another round of hesitation, and the voice of the Den Den Mushi sounded again. Luo Te, don't. Bang. Shut up. Okay, did you hear me? If you want to save him, come to the main tower quickly, we'll wait for you here. Luo Te's eyes condensed. He could clearly feel from the movement just now that Ace Bagu must have been seriously injured. You probably didn't expect me to come so soon. The main force hasn't arrived yet, right? Den Den Mushi's expression was obviously stunned for a moment. Who do you think you are? I have the strongest and most secretive agent organization CP9 of the world government. I'm afraid you can't keep us with just a few people. Are you looking down on me too much? Spandam? Luo Te pouted, with a hint of contempt in his voice. Den Den Mushi's expression instantly became distorted with fear. You. How do you know my name is Spandam? Hearing this name, Robin recalled frantically in his mind, Spandam? Why does this name sound so familiar? Luo Te shook his head. You don't care how I know it, you CP9 can't stop us, so just hand over Ace Bagu. Den Den Mushi instantly turned into a smug smile. Ha 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 ha, do you know? I still have Buster Call in my hand. What? Buster Call. Hearing the 3 words, Buster Call, Robin's mind emerged with the endless sea of fire, dense shells, endless explosions, and people begging and crying. She covered her head, her face was extremely pale, and her body trembled uncontrollably. That was a painful period that she dared not recall in her life. It was the Buster Call that caused the originally peaceful Ohara to die in the sea of fire. If it weren't for Aokiji, she would not be alive in the world. Seeing this, Luo Te hurried to Robin and gently hugged her in his arms. Okay, I'm here, don't be afraid. I can't change your childhood, but from now on I won't allow any nightmares to approach you. Robin curled up in Luo Te's arms and murmured, Luo Te, I'm so scared. Luo Te gently stroked her back. Don't be afraid, as long as I'm here, no one dares to bully you, and no one can take you away from me. Look forward in the future, okay? Robin looked up, tears in her eyes. Okay. Then she left Luo Te's arms a little embarrassed. Spandam, right? Wait for me to kill you. The Den Den Mushi looked terrified. Quick, Lucci, come and protect me. By the way, CP9, you are disbanded. I allow you to move freely on the island. At this point, the Den Den Mushi was hung up. Luo Te said, it's time, partners. This is the first time for all of us to act together. Crocodile and others were rubbing their hands, looking eager to try. Franky and Robin, come with me to find Ace Bagu. After saying that, he held Robin in his right hand and Franky in his left hand and disappeared on the spot. Nami stomped her feet at the place where Luo Te disappeared. Humph. Croco said at this time, Many powerful people appeared at the gate. They should be their reinforcements. Our task is to stop them and prevent them from disturbing Luo Te. After saying that, he transformed into a rock and flashed into the crowd. Crocodile and others also rushed into the crowd. For a while, the field was in chaos. Wow, are you Luo Te's group? You're really strong, bang bang bang. Enel looked up at the boiled egg standing on the roof and said, "Oh, what kind of creature are you? You look weird." The person who came was naturally Fukuru, one of the members of CP9. Fukuru looked proud. "Me? I'm the most tight-lipped person in CP9. Enel turned into lightning and teleported to Fukuru's side, 20 million volts of discharge. Fukuru jumped away flexibly, but looked at Enel with fear in his eyes. "Are you demon fruit power, or Logia thunderfruit?" Enel looked at his attack being dodged, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. But he didn't answer Fukuru's words. He teleported again and appeared above Fukuru's head. His right foot turned into lightning and stepped on Fukuru's head. Bang! Fukuru fell to the ground and there was no movement anymore. "Yeah, ha 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 ha, I thought he was so strong, but he turned out to be just a paper tiger." Enel looked at the deep pit on the ground and shook his head, and continued to rush towards the crowd. Zoro was holding a knife at this time, cutting down agents one after another like cutting melons and vegetables. Chapter 66. The end of CP9. Zoro felt a slash coming towards him, and he quickly turned sideways. The green-white slash brushed past his nose, scraping a green algae to the side. Ha ha ha, how interesting. As expected of Luo Te's chief swordsman, he is very alert. Zoro looked in the direction of the voice, and saw a square-nosed man wearing a baseball cap, carrying 2 knives and rushing towards him. It was Kaku, a member of CP9. He looked up and down at the square-nosed man in front of him, and grinned. A sneak attack is not the style of a swordsman. "I am CP9, an agent of the world government, to complete the mission of justice. There is no need to talk about morality when dealing with pirates," Kaku said, showing the blade. Zoro could sense that many people were rushing towards this side, and he knew that this was a trap for their group. From Luo Te's tone, the enemy's main force had not arrived yet. So he didn't plan to waste too much time on the square-nosed man in front of him. He grinned. "You'd better be prepared to attack me." After that, he put the silence back into the scabbard, pulled out the Wado Ichimonji, and bent his body in a horse stance. A huge pit was kicked out by the huge force on the ground. Ichidao Lu Shishigesh. As soon as the voice fell, Zoro appeared behind Kaku, and Kaku, who was still smiling just now, had a blood mark on his chest from bottom to top. Poof! Blood spurted out from the blood mark crazily, and Kaku fell to the ground. Zoro did not look back, but shook the bloodline on the blade, and said, "Choose a better profession in your next life. You can't control this agent thing." After that, he rushed into the crowd. Crocodile looked at the werewolf Jabra in front of him and asked, "I guess you are one of the so-called CP9 agents?" Jabra saw Crocodile, and a trace of regret flashed across his face. Why did he meet this sand crocodile? But the tone still couldn't lose face. "Crocodile, I didn't expect that you used to work for the world government, but now you have fallen into depravity and become a pirate." Crocodile showed a look of pity to Jabra and said, "I can't think of any meaning in working for a bunch of scum. Wouldn't it be better to create a new world for yourself?" Hearing Crocodile's words, Jabra was shocked and his tongue was a little tied. "What? You? Are you going to declare war on the world government?" Crocodile laughed and didn't intend to say anything more. The yellow sand in his hand was spinning wildly. Sandstorm. A spinning sandstorm wrapped Jabra, and every grain of sand close to Jabra's body was wrapped in armed color. Like a sharp blade, it cut a bloody mark on Jabra's body. Sandstorm funeral. Crocodile clenched his right hand, and the sandstorm shrank instantly, and blood immediately spurted out from the gaps in the sand. On the other side, Nami looked at Khalifa, who was already charred by electricity, and murmured, "I'm not envious of your figure, nor am I jealous of the way Luo Te looks at you. If we weren't on different sides, I think we should be friends." On the other side, Waiku was also burned into a barbecue and lay in front of Linger. As for Bluno, he was seriously injured by Crocodile last time and was removed from CP9. Since then, except for Lucci and Spandam, all CP9 members have been killed in seconds. Luo Te and Robin appeared on the platform of the Justice Tower. In his induction, there were obviously 3 electromagnetic waves running towards the Gate of Justice behind. "Found it." Franky came over instantly. "Ace Bagu. Then what are we waiting for? Go over quickly." Luo Te nodded and appeared on the bridge of hesitation with the 2 of them. Franky looked around and didn't see Ace Bagu. "Where's Ace Bagu? Why isn't he here?" Luo Te waved his hand to signal him to be quiet. "They will appear soon. Wait a moment." Da. Sure enough, 3 footsteps appeared at the door in a short while. Franky rushed to the door and shouted, "Ace Bago, I'm here to save you." Before he reached the door, Spandam appeared on the bridge of hesitation with a sword, followed by Lucci carrying Ace Bago. Seeing Ace Bago tied up with a smelly rag in his mouth, Franky was furious. Powerful right punch. Bang! Lucci staggered and took several steps back. Ahem. Lucci threw Ace Bago aside and looked at the muscular man in front of him with a metallic luster and said, Who are you? Franky flew out from the middle and caught Ace Bago, who was about to land. Gently put it on the ground. Ace Bago, don't die. Ace Bago looked at Franky in front of him with some doubts, his eyes wide open. It took him a long time to recognize that this was Franky. Franky nodded to Ace Bago, then turned around and looked at Lucci, who had transformed into a leopard. Don't you recognize me? It seems that my transformation is quite super. Lucci then said, you are Franky. Impossible. You can't be so strong. And how did your body become like this? Franky took out a comb from his arms and tidied his hair. This is my new body, made of all memory alloy, and sea stone is inlaid on my fist. Lucci's expression was like a magic trick, turning green and white. He finally understood why the punch just now made him feel like he was about to collapse. I don't care what memory alloy or sea stone you are. It's a coincidence that you are here, so I will accept the Pluton design drawings. After saying that, a shave appeared in front of Franky, finger pistol. The leopard's claws directly pierced Franky's chest, but the imagined blood-spurting scene did not appear. He quickly retracted his arm, but saw that the big hole he had just poked with the finger pistol was squirming at this time, and it healed in a short while. Lucci's eyes widened, looking at the scene in disbelief. However, Franky rushed forward with a burst of air from his feet, punching Lucci. Lucci was shocked by Franky's speed, and could only raise his fist to meet him in a hurry. Bang! The two fists met, Franky stood still, and Lucci took several steps back. He said in disbelief. Impossible, how can you become so strong? Remember last time your fist was limp. Franky grinned, there are still many things you don't know. After that, he punched Lucci in the face again, bang. 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 For a moment, the figures of the two disappeared, and only the sound of fists colliding exploded in the air. It seemed that no one could do anything to anyone. Luo Te instantly appeared beside Ace Bago, waved his hand to cut the rope, and took the rag out of Ace Bago's mouth. He stuffed a senzu bean into his mouth. Gulp. As soon as he swallowed it, Ace Bago said, Luo Te, hurry up. This is a trap set by the world government. They are going to launch a buster call, and it is said that the Admiral will also come. Luo Te frowned slightly. Will the Admiral come too? I don't know who it will be. Don't worry, my partners are here. Ace Bago was so stubborn that Luo Te said again. This time they are determined to get rid of you. You should hurry up, it should still be in time. Chapter 67. Seeing Kizaru again, Luo Te shook his head. I want to leave, but no one can stop me. Ace Bago stared at Luo Te for a long time before he moved his sight to the battlefield of Franky and Lucci. Is that really Franky? Luo Te nodded. Yes, that is his new body that has been fused with memory alloy, almost immortal. Let's go, he should have no problem dealing with Lucci now. Let's go see the culprit first. Ace Bago looked at Franky's battlefield, still a little worried. Is Franky really okay? Luo Te patted his shoulder and said, don't worry, he is very strong now. If there is any problem, I am here. When Luo Te brought Ace Bago to Spandam, he saw that Spandam had been tied up by Robin, his mouth was covered, and his neck was strangled. Luo Te slowly walked to Robin. Robin, I believe you should recognize who he is. Robin nodded, thinking of the scene of Spandam launching Buster Call to destroy Ohara. But she didn't dare to think too much, because the scene of the lively faces of the villagers slowly disappearing in the sea of fire was like a nightmare that could not be shaken off. And Spandam was Spandam's son. Unexpectedly, Spandam inherited his father's legacy. The father and son were equally annoying. Luo Te naturally knew Robin's hatred for this family, and the opportunity was right in front of him. If Spandam was released today, this timid guy might not be caught in the future. He said to Robin, I know everything, do whatever you want. Robin looked back at Luo Te in shock, but he is the chief of CP9. Killing him is equivalent to declaring war directly with the world government. Luo Te looked up at the huge door of justice behind him, sighed and said, our enemy has always been the world government, isn't it? Robin thought for a while and nodded. As if he had already noticed what Robin was about to do, Spandam twisted his body frantically, and there was a look of fear in his eyes. If Robin hadn't covered his mouth, he would have definitely said all the words he could think of to beg for mercy and surrender in his life. However, when Robin looked at him, there was only murderous intent in her eyes. She shook her head. Hook claw. Crack. Looking at Spandam with a dislocated neck on the ground, Robin took a deep breath. And Ace Bago on the side was shocked and speechless. This is the head of the world government's secret service organization, and he killed him just by saying so. Okay, let's go. Just as Luo Te was about to take Robin and Ace Bago away from the bridge of hesitation. Koa is tired. Luo Te, you're in trouble again. Luo Te slowly turned around and saw that iconic wretched figure. Oh, Admiral Kizaru, how can you have the time to come to Enies lobby? Are you here for tourism? Kizaru spread his hands. I do like to travel, but there doesn't seem to be much scenery in a place like Enies lobby. I came here specifically to see you. Luo Te raised his eyebrows and said, Admiral Kizaru, why do you come to me instead of catching those kidnappers who kidnapped the mayor of a city? I am a good citizen. Kizaru shook his head helplessly, looking very reluctant. Sorry, this is the order of the 5 elders. I was scolded for it. Ace Bago was stunned. Robin was also stunned at this time. Is this the Marine Admiral? Someone of the same level as Aokiji? The highest combat power of the naval headquarters? Thinking of Aokiji's almost desperate strength, Robin couldn't help but hold Luo Te's hand tightly, looking at Luo Te with a worried face. Luo Te patted the back of Robin's hand lightly, with a relaxed look on his face. Don't worry, with my strength, no one can do anything to me. Kizaru naturally saw Robin. Judging from the current actions of Robin and Luo Te, if they are not a couple, then they are partners. No matter which one it is extremely bad news for the world government. I think this is the son of the devil, Nico Robin? Have you joined Luo Te's group? Faced with Kizaru's momentum, Robin did not dare to look directly at him. Luo Te whispered, don't be afraid, I'm here. Robin hummed, slowly raised his head and looked at Kizaru, and said, yes, I am the son of the devil you were talking about, Robin. Kizaru turned his eyes to Luo Te. Brother Luo Te, you don't know who this Robin is, do you? As long as you hand Robin to me, I can let you go quietly. Luo Te naturally knew the purpose of Kizaru's words. Ha ha ha, Uncle Kizaru, of course I know who Robin is. As he said that, Luo Te looked at Robin gently and then said, Robin is Robin, no matter where she was from before, what she did, what words she knew, she is just my partner from now on. Also, you shouldn't set your sights on my partner. After speaking, Luo Te's momentum was full, and he directly punched a hole in the white cloud. Feeling this extremely powerful momentum, Kizaru was shocked. It's stronger than last time, what should I do? Kuzan and his men should be here soon, and I will leave Luo Te to them. Looking at Kizaru's uncertain face, Luo Te smiled and said, by the way, you want to keep me here, but it's still a little short, right? Have you forgotten the lesson from last time? Or will Aokiji and Akainu come? Kizaru touched his head in distress. You can't hide anything from me, brother. I don't dare to fight you alone. Kizaru was very entangled at this time. If he went up, he couldn't beat him. If he didn't go up, he would be criticized if he was seen. It was really difficult. Shaking his head, Kizaru still planned to entangle Luo Te first. If he couldn't beat him, at least he could run away. Aim no Kurisakumo sword. Suddenly, a golden lightsaber appeared in Kizaru's hand. Luo Te said to Robin, I'll leave Ace Bagu to you first. After that, he launched Robin and Ace Bagu onto the skybreaker in the air. Kizaru frowned at Luo Te's behavior, but did not stop him. Luo Te clapped his hands and looked at Kizaru. Come on, let me show you how much my strength has increased. He said, and instantly raised his fist to hit Kizaru. Kizaru dodged sideways, and then slashed at Luo Te with a knife. Ding! The lightsaber slashed on Luo Te's shoulder, making a sound of metal hitting. Even the clothes were not torn. Koa timid. The eyes under the yellow round sunglasses were wide. What a strong physique. I'm afraid it's comparable to Sha Luo Te Linlin. Luo Te also turned around and looked at Kizaru with interest. Why? Kizaru Admiral, my strength has increased. Kizaru said, don't be ridiculous, this doesn't look like a teenager, you are not an old monster. He searched for those top strong men in his mind, and all of them reached their peak strength in middle age. The man in front of him is only 18 years old at most. He has already become one of the world's top strongmen at such a young age. I'm afraid Roger and Whitebeard may not be so strong at his age. I don't know how terrifying his strength will be in the future. It's really difficult for the world government to have such an enemy. Luo Te twisted his shoulders and said, since you want to play, I'll play with you. Chapter 68. Akainu's first battle with Luo Te. Luo Te came to Enies' lobby just to save Ace Bagu. Now Ace Bagu is safe, and Robin is safe too. He naturally has no worries and can do it. Since he knows that this is a trap specifically for him, and Aokiji and Akainu may come, he also wants to test his limits. Having made up his mind, Luo Te wrapped Armament Haki and Conqueror's Haki around his fist, and appeared at Kizaru's side in an instant. He punched Kizaru in the temple. Kizaru tilted his head to the side, but with a bang, Kizaru flew dozens of meters and fell at the end of the hesitant bridge. He staggered a few steps and stood up, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Looking up at Luo Te, Kizaru was shocked beyond words. He had obviously dodged, and the fist did not touch him, so why was he still knocked away? Could it be Armament Haki emission combined with Conqueror's entanglement? What a relief. You have mastered such a terrible Haki at such a young age. Luo Te raised his fist, very satisfied. However, he did not intend to give Kizaru a chance to breathe. He knew that when Aokiji and Akainu arrived, even he might not be able to escape easily. So now he could only beat this troublesome sparkling fruit first, so as to avoid being beaten up by a group of people. He appeared above Kizaru in an instant and stepped down with his foot. But Kizaru, who had already been prepared, took a step back and teleported to the side for more than 10 meters. Bang! The moment Luo Te's foot touched the bridge, the entire bridge began to collapse, and smoke and dust filled the air. Kizaru floated aside and wiped his cold sweat. Brother Luo Te, you don't respect the elderly and love the young at all. Luo Te did not speak, but stretched his hand to the sky and clenched it. Countless electric charges gathered and finally turned into a thunder dragon. Electromagnetic force, thunder dragon is coming. The Thunder Dragon suddenly appeared in front of Kizaru at lightning speed, and the powerful electromagnetic field interfered with his sparkling fruit, almost freezing him in place. He forced his whole body to be covered with haki, but before he could move, the Thunder Dragon passed through his body. He felt numb all over, and there was a faint smell of burning. Luo Te instantly appeared in front of Kizaru, but Kizaru in front of him turned into photons and dissipated. He turned back suddenly and saw a bunch of photons gradually gathering on the bridge of hesitation. Ahem. The photons turned into Kizaru's body, and he looked a little embarrassed at this time. Luo Te instantly appeared in front of Kizaru again. Just when he raised his hand to attack Kizaru's head, he suddenly turned his fist and punched it in the air on the left. Bang! In an instant, a fiery red light was reflected on Luo Te's face. Odwodwodwo, are you finally here, red dog? Drops of magma fell on the bridge, making a hissing sound. Luo Te looked at the angry figure in front of him and said, I didn't expect that as a marine admiral. You also like sneak attacks? The person who came was Admiral Sakazuki, codenamed Akainu. At this time, his right hand turned into magma, dripping down, burning holes one by one on the ground. He stared at the young man in front of him, his mouth slightly shrank, and he was younger than he thought. Sneered. There is no such thing as sneak attacks. No matter what means are used, as long as you can be killed, it is a victory of justice. Luo Te didn't like this Akainu in his previous life. He kept saying, absolute justice, but in fact he was an extremist who would do anything to achieve his twisted justice, and even sacrifice his companions to achieve his goal. But he had to admit that in his heart, Akainu was extremely strong and could be called the strongest admiral. Whether it was out of hatred in the previous life or the position in this life, Luo Te had reasons not to let him go. Red dog, right? Lava fruit ability user. Do you want to dance too? Akainu's nose was crooked with anger. Luo Te kept talking about red dog. His eyes were full of anger. Little brat, today is the day you die. I declare that your voyage on the sea is over. After saying that, he swung his lava fist at Luo Te. The lava blew a hot wind towards Luo Te's face. Just when it was about to hit Luo Te's figure disappeared. He appeared on the left side of Akainu, wrapped Conqueror's haki and armament haki emission around his legs, and black and red lightning lingered around him, kicking Akainu's ribs at a speed close to light. Even though Akainu, who was at the top of the observation haki, had sensed the kick, Luo Te was too fast for him to react. He had no experience fighting against Luo Te, and didn't know that Luo Te was so fast. With a bang, Akainu flew away, and a few drops of magma fell from the air from time to time. The magma fell on the sea and raised a burst of white mist. Seeing that he was about to fall into the sea, Akainu forced himself to stabilize his body in the air, and quickly returned to the bridge of hesitation with a few moonwalks. Cough cough cough. Akainu covered his chest and coughed violently, his face turned pale, and he could feel that at least 5 of his ribs were broken. He glared at Luo Te, damn kid. Originally, seeing Luo Te was so young, he felt that everyone's evaluation was quite watery. But at this moment, he had to pay attention to this young man who he had despised before. Just now, he clearly felt the strong haki wrapped around Luo Te's feet, and the feeling was no weaker than that of the two old guys Garp and Sengoku. He now knew that what Kizaru said last time was true. If he still looked down on the young man in front of him, he would fail if he was not careful. Luo Te pursed his lips and thought it was a pity. Although his kick came in a hurry, it was also a strong blow. If an ordinary vice admiral was kicked, he might go directly to see Tai Nai. However, he failed to kick Akainu into the sea. He thought it was normal after thinking about it. After all, this person was a ruthless character who could come out and chase the protagonist after being beaten into the crack of the ground by Whitebeard. Luo Te stretched out his hand in the air and grasped it, electromagnetic knife. Suddenly, a knife about 1.4 meters long and glowing with blue light appeared in his hand. The shape was particularly beautiful. This was clearly made by Luo Te based on the appearance of Tang Hangdao in his previous life. Unlike the previous electromagnetic knives, it was just a flashing arc before, but now, it uses electromagnetic force to restrain high-energy electromagnetic energy, forming the shape of a knife. It is extremely sharp, and can vaporize the body instantly before it touches. Luo Te held the electromagnetic knife and appeared in front of Akainu in an instant. He slashed at Akainu's neck with the knife, and the sharp sword edge distorted the air around the sword body, and it approached Akainu's neck in the blink of an eye. But the speed of this knife was too fast, and it was too late to elementalize, so he could only lean back. The blade brushed against the tip of Akainu's nose, and he seemed to hear the hissing sound when the electromagnetic knife passed by the tip of his nose. Akainu knew that the tip of his nose had been scorched by the high temperature brought by the sword. Then he quickly took a step back, touched his nose, and looked at Luo Te with fear. If he hadn't dodged quickly, he might have been separated from his head and body. Luo Te shook the electromagnetic knife in his hand and complained. The knife is a good knife, but I'm not a swordsman. It's still more comfortable to punch the flesh. If the system gives a swordsman a reward someday, he wouldn't mind using it. After complaining, he took back the electromagnetic knife with some regret. Akainu's eyes were wide open, as if he wanted to eat Luo Te. Damn pirate boy, I will tear you into pieces. Dog Bites Red Lotus, Chapter 69, 3 Admirals Gathered. Akainu turned his arm, which had turned into magma, into a vicious dog, running in the air, and instantly appeared in front of Luo Te. Seeing the magma vicious dog open its bloody mouth, it was about to bite Luo Te's head off. Luo Te raised his fist and collided with the vicious dog. Bang! In an instant, magma burst out, and a very strong shockwave spread around. It stirred up huge waves in the sea. Luo Te strengthened Conqueror's haki on his fist again. After a stalemate for a while, the vicious dog was defeated and lava splashed everywhere. And Luo Te's fist did not slow down, and fell directly on Akainu's chest. It actually sank into the depth of half a fist. Bang! Akainu flew backwards faster this time, plowing a deep gully on the Bridge of Hesitation. In the end, the remaining Bridge of Hesitation was smashed directly, and smoke and dust rose, submerging Akainu's figure in it. Luo Te didn't intend to give Akainu a chance to breathe this time, so he flew towards Akainu again without waiting for Akainu to stop. However, just as Luo Te was about to get close, he heard a voice in the smoke. Dark Hound. Akainu's lava arm stretched out and appeared in front of Luo Te at an extremely fast speed. Luo Te quickly bent down to avoid the attack, and the lava arm rubbed Luo Te's cheek and blasted back. He quickly supported himself with both hands, and when the lava arm was retracted, he stood up with a carp jump. Luo Te stretched out his hand and pinched the hair on his forehead that was a little burnt, and he felt a little scared. If it weren't for his observation haki being strong enough to foresee the future, I'm afraid this punch would have landed on his handsome face. At this moment, he finally understood why even Whitebeard, although he was old and sick, couldn't avoid this move of Akainu. This was clearly turning the arm into magma, and then controlling the arm to stretch at an extremely fast speed to achieve the purpose of attacking the target. As the devil fruit with the strongest attack power, Akainu can effectively attack the target without armament haki. In some cases, the attack power of magma is even stronger than haki. And without the top armament haki or special devil fruit, it is almost impossible to fight Akainu barehanded. Akainu saw that his invincible move was dodged by Luo Te, and his exasperated voice sounded from the smoke and dust. Damn kid, you actually dodged it. Luo Te clenched his right fist, wrapped Conqueror's haki, armament haki and electromagnetic force all around it, and suddenly red, black and blue lightning spread out from his fist. There was a sizzling sound. He teleported in front of Akainu with an electromagnetic body, retracted his fist, and applied an electromagnetic catapult to his right elbow, and then his fist hit Akainu's left face at a speed close to the speed of light. Bang! Although the fist did not touch Akainu's face had become ultimate distorted, and the whole person flew backwards towards the sea. The speed was faster than a cannonball, and it was about to fall into the sea. Ice Age. The sea gradually began to freeze from a distance towards the main island of Enies Lobby, and in an instant the entire sea surface of Enies Lobby was covered with solid ice. Bang! Akainu did not fall into the sea, but just hit the ice surface. Cracks appeared on the ice surface with Akainu as the center, and the cracks quickly spread to the surroundings. In an instant, a hole was smashed through the ice surface. With a dong sound, a stream of seawater spurted out from the hole. Obviously, Akainu had fallen into the sea. Ah, is the ice still not thick enough? Luo Te looked up and saw a tall figure appearing on the sea in the distance, and he was telling the marine soldiers on the side, "Hey, go down and save Sakazuki first. I'll deal with Luo Te." After that, he jumped up, flashed in the air a few times, and appeared in the sky in front of Luo Te. "Admiral Aokiji, I didn't expect you to come too." Aokiji looked at Luo Te in front of him and was surprised. He looked much younger than in the photo. But he did not intend to answer Luo Te's words. 2 thorn spears. The ice and snow turned into 4 ice spears in front of Aokiji, and he shot them at Luo Te like an arrow. Luo Te stretched out his hand to build several layers of electromagnetic barriers in front of him, and saw that the ice spears seemed to be stuck in the mud and slowly stopped in the air. Luo Te appeared behind Aokiji in an instant, raised his foot and landed on Aokiji's back. In an instant, Aokiji turned into a stream of light and slammed on the ice surface. Bang! Aokiji was smashed into countless ice cubes and slid around, and the entire sea surface was also shaken by the smash. Luo Te slowly landed on the ice. He brushed off his clothes. The ice on the sea in front of him gradually piled up into the shape of Aokiji. Cough cough cough. Unable to help coughing a few times, Aokiji stood up and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. In the super hard net, Luo Te turned around and saw a flash of light that turned into Kizaru's figure appearing behind him. Damn Luo Te kid. Akainu also walked towards Luo Te from the left. Luo Te looked around, and the 3 admirals surrounded him in the middle. But he was not afraid, because he knew that if he wanted to escape at his speed, only Kizaru could catch up. And Kizaru alone could not fight Luo Te at all, so Luo Te was not panicked at all. He knew that this should be the trap set by the world government for him. Clap, clap, clap. He couldn't help but applaud. It seems that you really took great pains for me. The 3 admirals of the naval headquarters actually went out together, just for a small person like me. Kizaru looked at Luo Te and then at Akainu and Aokiji, and found that except Luo Te, they were all more or less injured. He couldn't help but marvel at Luo Te's strength. He knew that Luo Te's strange devil fruit had a restraining effect on him, but he didn't think it would have any restraining effect on Aokiji and Akainu. But this also injured Aokiji and Akainu. On the other hand, Luo Te's bangs were only burned and he was breathing slightly. Akainu said at this time, "Borsalino, you harass Luo Te on the side. Kuzan and I will take the lead and try to take him down in a short time." Although they were all admirals and had almost no experience of fighting together, Aokiji and Kizaru nodded after hearing Akainu's suggestion. They knew that this was the best way at the moment. As for the admiral's face, it was no longer important. As long as this scourge with infinite potential could be eliminated, anything would be fine. Luo Te frowned. He knew that if two admirals cooperated perfectly with each other, he would not dare to say that he would win easily, not to mention that there were 3 admirals together now. But he soon smiled because he sensed that his partner was coming. "Hey, who gave you the courage to attack our captain while we were away?" With a teasing voice, a Pung bird appeared beside Luo Te. Pung gradually changed and finally became the shape of crocodile. Crocodile? Kizaru looked at the scene in front of him and exclaimed. Kawa Ilii, Zone Fantasy Beast Species Bird Fruit Pung form. Luo Te pirates are really scary. Then a wisp of flame and a group of white clouds appeared in the field one after another. Fire Fist Rail, White Fist Nami, Kawa Ilii, 2 Logia Devil Fruits. Yahahaha, how can I not be in this scene? A bolt of lightning fell from the sky and turned into the shape of Enel. Then another sand blanket carried 2 people and slowly landed on the ground. Thor, Crocodile, Rornoa Zoro. So far, except for Robin and Franky, all members of Luo Te pirates have arrived. Chapter 70. All-out melee. Luo Te looked at Akainu with interest. Now you are surrounded by our Luo Te pirates. Akainu glanced at Kuro and others, and was secretly shocked. He found that these people were extremely powerful. At the lowest level, they were Vice Admiral. Some of them were even more powerful than them. But he would not help others and destroy his own prestige. He smiled and said with sarcasm, "What, your captain is too useless to beat him, so I asked you to help." Hearing Akainu's words, Kuro pushed his glasses. "You are too useless, you still want to besiege with 3 people?" After saying that, the figure appeared beside Akainu, Peng Yi Dao. The speed was so fast that Akainu didn't react at all, and he felt a sharp pain in his mouth. A sweet taste spread in his mouth. He knew it was blood. But when he came to his senses, he found that Kuro had returned to Luo Te. He realized that Kuro's speed was even faster than Luo Te, almost comparable to Kizaru. At this point, he also put away his contempt and his expression became serious. Klo said, "This time I just teach you lesson. Next time you gossip, it will not be as simple as bleeding." In fact, he was aiming at Akainu's neck just now, but Akainu noticed and dodged it. If he hadn't caught Akainu off guard, Akainu might have dodged it and this effect would not have been achieved. Even though he was usually calm, he had to be shocked at this moment that the strength of the Admiral was not in vain. Oh, are these 3 Marine Admirals? They are really 3 powerful oars. Zoro pushed the knife guard with a fighting spirit. Kizaru looked at the scene in front of him and couldn't help but worry. In their plan, they did consider facing Luo Te's partners. But they didn't expect Luo Te's partners to be so strong. They thought the strongest was only Crocodile, but now it seems that they have greatly underestimated the true strength of Luo Te's group. The plan has changed. Maybe the success rate of their plan to keep Luo Te at sea has dropped to an extremely low level. But as long as the 3 of them quickly take action to subdue Luo Te, everything will come to an end. Kizaru exchanged glances with Akainu and Aokiji and nodded. Kizaru turned into a stream of light and appeared in front of Luo Te. However, a figure appeared between the 2 of them, and the black shadow waved and fell on Kizaru's chest. Kizaru crossed his arms and bent them on his chest to block the attack. With a bang, Kizaru turned into a stream of light and shot into the distance. He slid far away and drew a gully on the ice. Kizaru stood up with a look of surprise on his face. "Kawa, what a fast speed." Chloe waved his wings. "What a strong body, you are worthy of being an admiral." "My captain's time is very tight, so let me play with you. Let's see who is faster." Kizaru looked solemnly at Chloe, whose hands turned into wings. At the same time, Aokiji also attacked Luo Te, Ice Cube exploding pheasant mouth. He gathered the cold air to his right arm, turned into an ice phoenix, and rushed to Luo Te at an extremely fast speed. However, a loud shout came into his ears. "Desert Great Sword." Suddenly, a huge sword made of yellow sand suddenly appeared and cut the ice phoenix in half. Aokiji frowned and looked at the figure in front of him with a solemn look in his eyes. "Sand Crocodile, Crocodile. Have you really joined Luo Te's group?" Crocodile pinched his cigar and said, "Instead of being a tool of the world government, it's better to be yourself. I also want to see how strong Admiral Aokiji, who is known as the highest combat power in the naval headquarters, is." At this moment, a flash of lightning appeared beside Crocodile. "Yahahaha, stinky sand crocodile. I will give this admiral to you, you can't control it." Crocodile turned his head and looked at Enel, lightning exhibitionist. "Whoever chooses first will be the opponent." Aokiji looked at the two people arguing in front of him, and his anger value was almost full. Good guy. Do you treat me as a commodity? Pick it at will, right? Ice ball. He stretched out two huge ice pillars from his palm and shot at Crocodile and Enel. The two people who were just arguing were frozen in two huge ice balls. Zoro saw the two people being frozen so easily, and couldn't help but complain. Hey, 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 can you two face the enemy in front of you? In just a moment, one ice ball was eroded and cracked by the yellow sand, and the other ice ball was shattered by lightning. Lightning exhibitionist, let's see who can defeat this admiral first. Yahahaha, it must be me, after all, I am a god. Sandstorm, 50 million volts, discharge. For a moment, even Aokiji was exhausted from parrying, and took the attack of the two people head on, and the whole person was smashed into the ice. Yahahaha, did you see it? Stinky sand crocodile, this is called attack. Enel teleported to the side of the ice hole. He looked at Crocodile with a smug look. Crocodile turned into yellow sand and came here. He did not argue with Enel at this time, but looked at the hole in front of him carefully. In his observation hockey, Aokiji's figure had disappeared into the hole. Trample, trample, trample. The dense marine soldiers ran over from the Gate of Justice, accompanied by a uniform pace, and the entire ice surface shook with every step. Are you here? Luo Te looked up at the aggressive marine soldiers. You marines really put a lot of effort into dealing with me, but I don't know if it will backfire. Akainu snorted, don't you like a luxurious funeral? Luo Te boy? Luo Te tilted his head and said, but we are a tough guy. If we are not careful, we will break our teeth. Whose funeral will it be? Akainu frowned and looked at Luo Te's group who had not yet made a move. Humph, justice will not fail. Today is your death, Luo Te boy. Zoro grinned, pulled out, silence, and slashed at Akainu. Suddenly, a huge blue slash flew towards Akainu quickly. Hey, green algae head. What are you doing? This method of selecting opponents is a bit unfair. Linger shouted at Zoro's back. Zoro did not look back but stared at the slash. I also want to see how big the gap is between me and the Admiral. Dang. There was a loud noise, and the slash seemed to be blocked by something, and the speed became extremely slow. Ha! With a fierce shout, the blue slash was forced to change direction and rushed into the sky. Bang! The huge slash bloomed in the air, tearing a huge hole in the white clouds. Who? Zoro narrowed his eyes and stared at the figure. Vice Admiral. Why is it a woman? Luo Te saw the person clearly, a female marine with a height of 1.85 meters, big eyes and red lips, and a black hair tied behind her head. A pair of long and white legs, with a spider pattern tattooed on the left leg. A mole on the lower right corner of the lip is like a finishing touch, adding a bit of intellectual beauty to the woman's appearance. It was Gion Vice Admiral, codename, Momosagi. Chapter 71. Luo Te's Akainu. Luo Te knew that Gion was extremely strong and was already close to Admiral. Otherwise, he would not have been selected as an Admiral candidate in his previous life. Zoro looked at the female marine in front of him, and he could feel an extremely sharp aura emanating from her. Standing there, she was as sharp as a precious sword, and the feeling was not much weaker than that of an admiral. He smiled and said, female swordsman? It's really rare. Gion looked up and down at the man with green algae on his head and a height that was not as tall as her. You must be Roronoa Zoro. The sword just now was quite powerful. Hearing this, Zoro smiled, but there was a bit of bloodthirstiness in this smile. Marine? We are destined not to be on the same path. After saying that, he appeared in front of Gion with a shave and a shave. Night silence draw the sword. Ding! Gion's pupils shrank, such a fast speed. In a hurry, he raised the sword to block in front of himself, and the whole person was shocked by this force and slid backwards. She quickly stepped on the ground with her right foot and slid back more than 10 meters before she managed to stabilize her body. What? This speed? Why can you shave? Luo Te looked at Zoro with satisfaction in his eyes. He was not like Sanji when it came to women. He would go all out as long as he identified an opponent. Gion stared at the man in front of him with his almond-shaped eyes. Except for Hawkeye, you are the strongest swordsman I have ever seen. You seem to be under 18 years old, it's really scary. Zoro smiled. Mahawk? I will defeat him sooner or later. Just then, a wretched male voice came from a distance. Gion-chan, I'm here to protect you. I won't allow anyone to hurt you. Gion frowned slightly and murmured, why is this low-level man here again? As the voice approached, Zoro saw the person clearly. The wretched, squinty-eyed short marine, judging from the cloak, was still a vice admiral. But the momentum was even more than Gion's. Gion, you see I came to protect you without stopping, just accept my 58th confession. Gion looked at the man with disgust. Kaji, I have said hundreds of times that I don't like you and will not accept your confession. You'd better give up as soon as possible. Kaji knelt down after hearing this blatant rejection. Heaven, earth, please open your eyes. I am so handsome and so affectionate. Why does Gion still reject me? Linger was worried that there was no opponent, and this happened to be the man she hated the most. She turned into a flame and rushed towards Kaji without thinking. Fire gun. Instantly, a spear made of flame appeared in Linger's hand and threw it towards Kaji. Kaji naturally felt the danger, took out a pistol with his right hand, and pulled the trigger at the spear. There was only a bang sound, and the black bullet and the tip of the spear collided with each other. In an instant, it was like a needle against a wheat spike. Neither of them gave in, and finally the spear dissipated, and the bullet was melted into liquid metal and dripped on the ice, making a hissing sound. Kaji stood up and looked at the flames floating towards him, wondering, Logia Mera Mera fruit ability user. Who is it? Is he also from Luo Te's group? After a while, the flame came to Kaji and transformed into a red-haired girl in a long skirt. Linger stared at the man in front of him, and then looked at Gion on the side, and couldn't help but complain. Uncle, you are too ugly, you are not worthy of this big sister. Listen to my advice, let go. Kaji's nose was smoking with anger. Damn pirate, Gion obviously loves me, but there are too many people here, she is embarrassed to speak. Linger held his forehead. There is no way to save this man. Akainu looked at the marines around him, and it can be seen that none of them exerted their greatest strength, as if they were acting. He frowned. Each of them is so unreliable. How can such marines talk about upholding justice? Admiral, we are here to help you. At this time, the two marines who rushed to the front came to Akainu's side. Luo Te recognized them at a glance. These two vice admirals were Flying Squirrel and Burning Mountain. Akainu looked at Luo Te. Now it's 3 against 2. Tell me, how do you want to die, Luo Te boy? After that, his hands turned into lava, and his haki was fully activated. Who said it was 3-2? Isn't this 3-3? Luo Te tilted his head and saw a perverted man with a metallic luster, his feet spraying air and appearing beside Luo Te. Super. Am I not late? Luo Te. The man was Franky who defeated Lucci. Just in time. Luo Te nodded, and then looked at Akainu. Akainu Admiral, how can I say it? It's 3-3 now. Akainu snorted. It's useless, as long as you were killed, your Luo Te pirates will naturally collapse. Akainu rushed towards Luo Te. What makes you think you have the strength to face me alone? Looking at Akainu rushing towards him alone, Luo Te shook his head slightly. It turns out to be a mad dog who bites everyone he sees. That's right, otherwise why is the codename Akainu? Luo Te electromagnetically rushed to meet Akainu's attack. Bang! Luo Te's fist hit the giant lava fist, and the ground where the two stood began to crack in an instant, and the cracks spread all around. The fists intersected, and the ice surface below the two began to crack into a huge gully. Luo Te twisted his waist and added a haki to his fist. Finally, the giant lava fist couldn't hold up and was smashed, and Akainu couldn't control his body and flew backwards. He was smashed into the ice again. Admiral, Akainu Admiral. Quick, quick, quick. At this time, the marine soldiers who came from the surrounding rushed to the ice hole where Akainu was smashed. However, red flames began to appear under the ice layer, and the ice layer was melted and pierced. Akainu jumped out. Damn Luo Te boy, great eruption. Suddenly, a fist bigger than before blasted towards Luo Te. The red flames reflected on Luo Te's face, and he could clearly feel the terrifying heat radiating from it. If an ordinary person was hit by this punch, he would be vaporized directly. However, it can be seen that the disadvantage of this punch is quite obvious, that is, the speed is too slow. Luo Te covered the surface of the fist with electromagnetic force and formed a sharp stab. Then the electromagnetic body appeared behind Akainu and punched Akainu's back. The fist with superimposed electromagnetic force was very fast, breaking through the speed of sound, forming a circle of sound barrier around the fist. The fist easily pierced Akainu's body, but Luo Te was not happy. Because the super hard net could sense Akainu's breath appeared behind him. Dark Hound. Luo Te quickly moved to the side with an electromagnetic body for more than 10 meters. Bang! The moment Luo Te moved away, Akainu's fist hit the place where he just stood. The ice layer was melted into a huge pit in an instant. Akainu looked at Luo Te on the side and thought to himself, what an annoying ability, jumping around like a monkey. Luo Te looked at the giant ice hole that was melted and felt a little scared. He knew that even if his current physique had reached the top level, he might not be able to withstand Akainu's attack without injury. He patted his chest and let out a long breath. He now understood the secret of Akainu's move. After Akainu was smashed into the ice, a piece of lava was created under the ice, and the lava was considered Akainu's body, but it didn't have to be considered his own body. Because he could turn any part of the lava into part of his body, and it wouldn't be captured by observation haki. Luo Te frowned. He didn't see Akainu's ability in the comics in his previous life. He didn't know if this was the awakening skill of Logia Devil Fruit. But he had to guard against Akainu's move now. Chapter 72. Akainu is seriously injured after a series of battles. Even Luo Te was a little tired at this moment, and could only take out a senzu bean and throw it into his mouth. The physical strength and energy consumed in an instant were restored at this moment, and an extremely strong momentum spread from Luo Te to the surroundings. The ice under his feet began to show fine cracks under the pressure of this momentum. He looked up at Akainu, twisted his neck, and made a crackling sound. Akainu Admiral, I am so strong now that I feel terrible. His voice was full of teasing and confidence. Next, you should be prepared. Akainu looked at Luo Te in front of him and couldn't help but be secretly shocked. He felt the momentum emanating from Luo Te, like a flood and a beast, which made him feel an unprecedented sense of oppression. This feeling was even stronger than when he faced Old Man Garp. It can be said that he is the strongest person he has met so far. He didn't understand what Luo Te had experienced to become so strong, and why most strong people are pirates. Luo Te didn't care what Akainu was thinking, he just appeared in front of Akainu with an electromagnetic teleportation. Akainu, who had been keeping a high level of vigilance, suddenly shrank his pupils when he saw the black shadow in front of him. What the hell? So fast, it's several times faster than before. Luo Te turned around and kicked Akainu in the waist. Bang! Akainu's face turned pale and he flew backwards to the right. The powerful force made Akainu draw a long arc in the air and flew towards the warship docked at the seaside like a meteor. What is that? On the ice, many soldiers who were rushing towards this side looked at the light and shadow that flashed in the sky and asked in surprise. It seems to be a person. Someone guessed. It should be flying over from the battlefield over there. Someone else added. Was he hit by someone? The soldiers talked a lot, but before they could see clearly, the stream of light had disappeared. With a loud bang, it hit the warship, and the warship was penetrated by Akainu because it could not withstand the huge impact force and shattered on the spot. This sudden change stunned everyone, and the soldiers on the warship who did not have time to get off the ship were affected and suffered heavy casualties. Akainu was also hid behind the warship. Some soldiers who were still rushing to the battlefield squinted their eyes and saw that it was their admiral in the ice cave. It was a mess for a while. It seems to be Admiral Akainu. Quick! Save people! After the deceleration caused by the collision with the warship, Akainu did not fall into the sea this time. He turned into lava, pierced the ice layer, and stood on the ice again. Holding his left waist, he could feel that his waist should have been broken. The soldiers around him had already seen that their admiral had been seriously injured. They were secretly shocked. Luo Te was so strong. He knocked their admiral so far away. This is an admiral, not just an ordinary officer. He is the invincible one in their minds and the faith of many soldiers. Many soldiers chose to be Marines just for these admirals. And at this moment, their faith was blown away by a pirate. One of the soldiers asked tentatively, aka Admiral Akainu? Are you okay? Do you want to call a doctor for you? However, Akainu seemed not to hear him, staring at Luo Te in the distance. The soldier said again, Admiral Akainu, the enemy is so strong, why don't we go back first? Otherwise, the brothers will. But before he could finish his words, Akainu's right hand turned into lava and melted the soldier with a punch. He swept his eyes across the faces of the soldiers and said, from the moment you become a Marine, you are destined to fight pirates and sacrifice. You must be aware of this. If you can't do this, then there is no need to be a Marine. Then his eyes fixed and his tone became low. People who disrupt the morale of the army are not worthy of being a Marine. After saying that, his whole body turned into lava and ran towards Luo Te quickly. Until Admiral Akainu left, the soldiers dared to breathe deeply. They were almost suffocated by the powerful aura of Akainu. When they came to their senses and looked at each other, they felt like they had survived a disaster. They cast their eyes on the pile of smoking charcoal on the ground, and their eyes were inevitably filled with sadness. Sensing Akainu who was moving quickly, Luo Te's heart Chunin couldn't help but be surprised at Akainu's ability to withstand blows. Although his kick just now only used a simple armed color emission entanglement, it was a kick in his prime. It was more powerful than the previous double hockey entanglement plus electromagnetic force. Even so, Akainu lost consciousness. Luo Te touched his chin. It seemed that he had to do his best to knock down the highest combat power of the naval headquarters. He teleported again, appeared in front of Akainu, with armament hockey and conqueror's hockey wrapped around his hands, and slashed Akainu's shoulder with a knife. Akainu observation hockey had already noticed the landing point of Luo Te's attack, but the speed was too fast, and he was injured, so he couldn't completely dodge it for a while. Puff! Luo Te's knife cut Akainu's chest from top to bottom like cutting tofu. Strangely, the wound did not bleed again but was burned into charcoal black. Obviously, this attack was also wrapped with electromagnetic force. Akainu's heart was made up. Dark Hound. Luo Te's heart tightened, and his left hand wrapped around armament hockey to fight against it. Bang! A very strong shockwave spread around. Luo Te sent another hockey to his fist, and Akainu was defeated and fell to the ground. He was a little scared. Akainu's move just now was clearly a way of fighting with injuries for injuries, fighting with life for life. He teleported again and kicked Akainu on the wound on his chest. The intense pain made the admiral scream, and he covered his chest and flew backwards quickly. Half kneeling on the ice, beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. Cough cough cough. Every time he coughed, blood spit out of his mouth. Luo Te teleported and appeared in front of Akainu again. Akainu raised his head with difficulty and looked at the extremely young pirate in front of him, full of resentment. He didn't hate Luo Te for defeating or killing him, but he hated that a mere pirate could trample on justice so wantonly. Luo Te, even if you kill me now, you will not win. Justice will definitely be the winner. Pirates will eventually be defeated by justice. Akainu's mouth was full of blood, and his body was stained with blood, looking extremely terrifying. Luo Te looked at Akainu, who was spitting blood crazily, and his heart was extremely entangled. He didn't think he was a saint. But if he were in Akainu's position, he might not be as good as Akainu. To be honest, he really admires Akainu. But the two of them have different positions, and Akainu's character of using any means to achieve his goals. A paranoid absolute justice would never be a qualified soldier of Sha country. Sakazuki, what do you think is justice? Will justice win? Of course, because only the winner is justice. After saying that, he raised his right foot that was wrapped around armament hockey and Conqueror's hockey. And Akainu was unwilling. Damn it, Luo Te kid, and at this moment. Chapter 73. Partner Battlefield. A cannonball hormone wrapped with armament hockey appeared in front of Luo Te. Feeling the sharp hockey on the cannonball, Luo Te had to retract his right foot. Ha 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 ha, Luo Te boy, I won't let you slaughter a marine admiral like this. Kizaru and Kuro's battlefield. Kawa. The mythical beast devil fruit is really strong. Kizaru looked at the big back-haired man in front of him with a serious expression. He knew that the Luo Te pirates would not be just some chickens and dogs. But he also believed that with the Luo Te pirates having been at sea for less than a year, they could gather strong partners in a short time. But Kuro in front of him gave him a wake-up call. He felt the extremely strong hockey from Kuro. Combined with the extremely fast speed and sharp wings of Dapeng, he was surprised to find that he didn't have much chance of winning. Kuro pushed his glasses habitually, and the glasses flashed white light. He hadn't used his full strength for a long time. Now he was full of blood and many new moves could finally be put into practice. He did not speak, but directly transformed into a human beast form, flapped his wings slightly, and a hurricane cut through the space like a sharp blade and slashed Kizaru's body. The sharp blade passed through Kizaru's body and cut towards the ground. The hurricane landed on the ice, directly cutting a giant crack several tens of meters long on the ice. In an instant, seawater gushed out from the crack. Looking at Kizaru again, he was actually split in two from the waist and fell to the ground. The cut surface of his body was shining with golden light. Klo nodded, and was very satisfied with his new move. Looking at Admiral Kizaru, who was cut in half on the ground, he knew that the slash without hockey could not cause any damage to the Logia devil fruit. Sure enough, after a while, Kizaru's lower body stood up with a carp, and his upper body turned into photons that gradually gathered at the waist, and finally turned into a complete body. Kizaru focused his eyes on Chloe. Too much, don't you know how to respect the elderly and love the young? It's really a terrifying ability, it scared me. After saying that, he stretched out his right index finger to point at Chloe, and shot a beam of light from his fingertips. Chloe flapped his wings and appeared 10 meters away. The arrow of light pierced Chloe's afterimage. It was so dangerous. I almost didn't dodge it. Chloe pretended to pat his chest. Kizaru was also slightly stunned when he saw that his attack was easily dodged, and then jumped dozens of meters high in one step. Yashikani no Magatama. Suddenly, countless light particles attacked Chloe at the speed of light like dense bullets. Chloe spread his wings to completely wrap his body, and all the light particles hit the black wings. For a moment, dust and smoke rose everywhere, and Chloe's figure was completely submerged in the smoke and dust. After a long time, Kizaru put away his attack and slowly landed on the ground. His eyes stared at Chloe's position without moving for a moment. In an instant, a hurricane blew up and blew away all the smoke and dust. The figure of Chloe was revealed. Don't lie, how could it have no effect? Kizaru was shocked and speechless when he saw Chloe without a single scratch. Chloe shook his wings, looked up at Kizaru, and said, "You've been attacking for so long, now it's my turn." After that, Chloe waved his wings slightly, leaving a residual image on the spot, and appeared above Kizaru, with his right leg transformed into a rock claw. Armament hockey hardening. Shenping step. He stepped on Kizaru's head. Chloe's speed was too fast, and Kizaru did not expect Chloe's speed to be comparable to his own. For a moment, he could only cross his arms above his head to resist Chloe's heavy kick. The powerful kick made Kizaru kneel directly on the ground. Crack. The ice layer cracked from Kizaru's feet to the surroundings. He realized something was wrong and quickly rolled to the right. Without any obstruction, the rock claw fell directly on the ice layer. With a bang, a giant ice cave with a radius of more than 20 meters was directly stepped out of the ice. Looking at the amazing scene in front of him, Kizaru opened his mouth slightly. Kawa, it's really a powerful kick. Crow left a residual image in the air and appeared in front of Kizaru. The battlefield of Crocodile and Enel. Aokiji looked at the two people in front of him, frowned. Crocodile, Thor. Enel stretched out his hand and waved. Yeah, ha 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 ha, stinky sand crocodile, leave this opponent to me, you go to deal with those soldiers. Crocodile held a sand tornado in his hand. Lightning exhibitionist, you don't know the details of your opponent, so let me do it. Aokiji spoke at this time. Hey, can you ask for my opinion? Enel glanced at Aokiji, not intending to argue with Crocodile anymore, and turned into lightning and appeared above Aokiji's head. Speed is power. Have you ever been kicked by lightning? After speaking, Enel's right foot turned into a lightning shape and kicked towards Aokiji's left temple. Aokiji raised his arm and used his hand to turn ice to block his head. Bang! The legs and arms connected, and Aokiji slid to the other side. He quickly stepped on the ground with his right foot and barely stabilized his body. At this moment, Desert Sword, Crocodile waved his hand, and a huge yellow sand sword cut Aokiji in half, turning into ice cubes and scattering all over the ground. Cough cough cough. The ice cubes gathered into the shape of Aokiji's body, and blood slowly flowed from the corners of his mouth. Looking up at Crocodile in front of him, Haki, what a strong opponent. Enel teleported in front of Crocodile. Hey, this is my opponent, don't interfere. Crocodile took a puff of cigar, stared at Aokiji who was half squatting on the ground and said, who said this is your opponent? Whoever grabs it will own it. After that, he turned into yellow sand and appeared in front of Aokiji, Sand Fist. Suddenly, grains of yellow sand formed a glove on his fist, and then it was covered by armament Haki and turned black. He punched Aokiji in the face, and Aokiji also raised his fist to meet it. In an instant, the two fists collided. Bang! Aokiji stood still, but Crocodile took several steps back. Crocodile tightened his trembling right hand, and sighed in his heart that he was worthy of being an admiral, and he was really not an ordinary opponent. Enel had no intention of giving the opponent in front of him to Crocodile. He suddenly appeared beside Aokiji with a teleportation, holding a black trident in his hand and slashing towards Aokiji's neck. Aokiji clenched his left hand and condensed an ice sword in his hand to block Enel's attack. Bang! The ice sword and the trident were in a stalemate. Aokiji shook hard and Enel was defeated and flew backwards. However, before Aokiji could catch his breath, Crocodile's attack also arrived, ink-stained steel hook. The steel hook attached to the armament Haki hit Aokiji's chest directly, and the steel hook penetrated Aokiji's chest, leaving a huge hole. However, Crocodile frowned. Is it elementalized in advance? It seems that Admiral's observation Haki is also one of the top ones. Aokiji stepped back more than 10 meters and looked at the two enemies in front of him. Originally, he came with a relaxed and happy mood, but now his heart has sunk to the bottom of the valley. Chapter 73. Partner Battlefield. A cannonball hormone wrapped with armament Haki appeared in front of Luo Te. Feeling the sharp Haki on the cannonball, Luo Te had to retract his right foot. Ha 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 ha, Luo Te boy, I won't let you slaughter a marine admiral like this. Kizaru and Kuro's battlefield. Kawa. The mythical beast devil fruit is really strong. Kizaru looked at the big back-haired man in front of him with a serious expression. He knew that the Luo Te pirates would not be just some chickens and dogs. But he also believed that with the Luo Te pirates having been at sea for less than a year, they could gather strong partners in a short time. But Kuro in front of him gave him a wake-up call. He felt the extremely strong Haki from Kuro. Combined with the extremely fast speed and sharp wings of Dapeng, he was surprised to find that he didn't have much chance of winning. Kuro pushed his glasses habitually, and the glasses flashed white light. He hadn't used his full strength for a long time. Now he was full of blood and many new moves could finally be put into practice. He did not speak, but directly transformed into a human beast form, flapped his wings slightly, and a hurricane cut through the space like a sharp blade and slashed Kizaru's body. The sharp blade passed through Kizaru's body and cut towards the ground. The hurricane landed on the ice, directly cutting a giant crack several tens of meters long on the ice. In an instant, seawater gushed out from the crack. Looking at Kizaru again, he was actually split in two from the waist and fell to the ground. The cut surface of his body was shining with golden light. Klo nodded, and was very satisfied with his new move. Looking at Admiral Kizaru who was cut in half on the ground, he knew that the slash without Haki could not cause any damage to the Logia devil fruit. Sure enough, after a while, Kizaru's lower body stood up with a carp, and his upper body turned into photons that gradually gathered at the waist, and finally turned into a complete body. Kizaru focused his eyes on Chloe. Too much, don't you know how to respect the elderly and love the young? It's really a terrifying ability, it scared me. After saying that, he stretched out his right index finger to point at Chloe, and shot a beam of light from his fingertips. Chloe flapped his wings and appeared 10 meters away. The arrow of light pierced Chloe's afterimage. It was so dangerous. I almost didn't dodge it. Chloe pretended to pat his chest. Kizaru was also slightly stunned when he saw that his attack was easily dodged, and then jumped dozens of meters high in one step. Yashikani no Magatama. Suddenly, countless light particles attacked Chloe at the speed of light like dense bullets. Chloe spread his wings to completely wrap his body, and all the light particles hit the black wings. For a moment, dust and smoke rose everywhere, and Chloe's figure was completely submerged in the smoke and dust. After a long time, Kizaru put away his attack and slowly landed on the ground. His eyes stared at Chloe's position without moving for a moment. In an instant, a hurricane blew up and blew away all the smoke and dust. The figure of Chloe was revealed. Don't lie, how could it have no effect? Kizaru was shocked and speechless when he saw Chloe without a single scratch. Chloe shook his wings, looked up at Kizaru, and said, "You've been attacking for so long, now it's my turn." After that, Chloe waved his wings slightly, leaving a residual image on the spot, and appeared above Kizaru, with his right leg transformed into a rock claw. Armament Haki hardening. Shenping step. he stepped on Kizaru's head. Chloe's speed was too fast, and Kizaru did not expect Chloe's speed to be comparable to his own. For a moment, he could only cross his arms above his head to resist Chloe's heavy kick. The powerful kick made Kizaru kneel directly on the ground. Crack. The ice layer cracked from Kizaru's feet to the surroundings. He realized something was wrong and quickly rolled to the right. Without any obstruction, the rock claw fell directly on the ice layer. With a bang, a giant ice cave with a radius of more than 20 meters was directly stepped out of the ice. Looking at the amazing scene in front of him, Kizaru opened his mouth slightly. Kawa, it's really a powerful kick. Crow left a residual image in the air and appeared in front of Kizaru. The battlefield of Crocodile and Enel. Aokiji looked at the two people in front of him, frowned. Crocodile, Thor. Enel stretched out his hand and waved. Yeah, ha 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 ha, stinky sand crocodile, leave this opponent to me, you go to deal with those soldiers. Crocodile held a sand tornado in his hand. Lightning exhibitionist, you don't know the details of your opponent, so let me do it. Aokiji spoke at this time. Hey, can you ask for my opinion? Enel glanced at Aokiji, not intending to argue with Crocodile anymore, and turned into lightning and appeared above Aokiji's head. Speed is power. Have you ever been kicked by lightning? After speaking, Enel's right foot turned into a lightning shape and kicked towards Aokiji's left temple. Aokiji raised his arm and used his hand to turn ice to block his head. Bang! The legs and arms connected, and Aokiji slid to the other side. He quickly stepped on the ground with his right foot and barely stabilized his body. At this moment, Desert Sword, Crocodile waved his hand, and a huge yellow sand sword cut Aokiji in half, turning into ice cubes and scattering all over the ground. Cough cough cough. The ice cubes gathered into the shape of Aokiji's body, and blood slowly flowed from the corners of his mouth. Looking up at Crocodile in front of him, Hockey, what a strong opponent. Enel teleported in front of Crocodile. Hey, this is my opponent, don't interfere. Crocodile took a puff of cigar, stared at Aokiji who was half squatting on the ground and said, who said this is your opponent? Whoever grabs it will own it. After that, he turned into yellow sand and appeared in front of Aokiji, Sand Fist. Suddenly, grains of yellow sand formed a glove on his fist, and then it was covered by armament hockey and turned black. He punched Aokiji in the face, and Aokiji also raised his fist to meet it. In an instant, the two fists collided. Bang! Aokiji stood still, but Crocodile took several steps back. Crocodile tightened his trembling right hand, and sighed in his heart that he was worthy of being an admiral, and he was really not an ordinary opponent. Enel had no intention of giving the opponent in front of him to Crocodile. He suddenly appeared beside Aokiji with a teleportation, holding a black trident in his hand and slashing towards Aokiji's neck. Aokiji clenched his left hand and condensed an ice sword in his hand to block Enel's attack. Bang! The ice sword and the trident were in a stalemate. Aokiji shook hard and Enel was defeated and flew backwards. However, before Aokiji could catch his breath, Crocodile's attack also arrived, ink-stained steel hook. The steel hook attached to the armament hockey hit Aokiji's chest directly, and the steel hook penetrated Aokiji's chest, leaving a huge hole. However, Crocodile frowned. Is it elementalized in advance? It seems that Admiral's observation hockey is also one of the top ones. Aokiji stepped back more than 10 meters and looked at the two enemies in front of him. Originally, he came with a relaxed and happy mood, but now his heart has sunk to the bottom of the valley. Chapter 74. Partner Battlefield. Zoro's hand holding the knife was shaking slightly. He looked up at the female marine not far away and his eyes lit up. He hadn't fought with a serious swordsman for a long time, and the fighting blood in his body was boiling at this moment. The silence in his hand also trembled slightly. He tightened the handle of the knife and lowered his head and said, "Are you eager to fight too?" Guion stood up straight, and his hands were slightly numb. In the sun, Zoro and Guion fought against each other. The breeze blew, blowing up the ice between the two, and the air was filled with murderous air. At this moment, the two figures moved almost at the same time. Zoro's footsteps shook like an earthquake, and the ground was trampled out by him, a huge pit. He rushed towards Guion with silence in his hand, and the blade flashed cold light in the sun, pointing directly at Guion's neck. Guion was not to be outdone, and his figure shook, raising the knife to meet Zoro. Dang! The two swords collided with each other, sparking a burst of sparks between the swords, and they were in a stalemate for a while. Zoro laughed. "You are the strongest female swordsman I have ever seen." He thought of Chingmei, who covered her breasts that had begun to develop and complained about why she was a girl. If she were still in the world, she would be stronger than the female marine in front of her. Zoro thought so. Guion put his other hand on the handle of the sword, forced Zoro back with one force, and then slashed at Zoro with another sword. Zoro's eyes shrank, and he pulled out Lu Guang and Ji to cross and block Guion's sword. Seeing Zoro take out two swords, Guion was very interested. "Oh, two-sword style?" Zoro shook his head and said, "I am a three-sword style, but I only need two swords to deal with you. You can't make me pull out the third sword at the moment." Guion heard this, and a trace of solemnity flashed in his eyes. "What an arrogant pirate. Today I must arrest you and send you to Impel down." After speaking, her movements accelerated, and her attacks became more fierce. For a while, the sound of swords colliding rang out on the field, and the sword moves of the two people were as continuous as flowing water. Gradually, the sword energy cut the ice layer where the two stood into pieces. The two stood on a piece of floating ice. Zoro panted slightly, looking at Gion opposite him, and for a moment he seemed to have returned to the night when he fought with Kuina. Zoro pulled off the green headscarf on his left arm and tied it on his head, then pulled out the Wado Ichimonji and bit it in his mouth. Gion naturally saw Zoro's strange appearance and couldn't help but ask, "Is this your perfect form? How much strength can you increase by biting a knife in your mouth?" Zoro looked up at Gion in front of him. He didn't expect that the female marine in front of him was so strong that it was a bit difficult to deal with her with two swords. "Oppa-chan, be prepared, you are facing a beast next." Gion's eyes spit fire when he heard Zoro's address, and he was angry instantly. "What? Who are you calling an old woman? I'm only in my 40s, and I'm beautiful." Gion's momentum rose by 1 degree in an instant. Zoro pursed his lips. "You're already in your 40s, and you still don't admit that you are an old woman." "What? I want you to die. No woman wants to be called old." Gion couldn't bear it anymore, stepped on the water with a knife and rushed towards Zoro. Linger and Kaji on the battlefield. "Uncle, please don't look like you ruined your date, okay? As the saying goes, love can conquer mountains and seas." Linger tilted her head and looked like she saw through the world. Kaji sighed at the beautiful Linger in front of him. "Little sister, although you are very beautiful and confessed to me, I still like Miss Gion." Linger was speechless. Is this wretched uncle in front of him crazy? He thought she was confessing to him even though she didn't say anything. "Uncle, are you mentally ill? I don't like your type. And which ear did you hear me confessing to you?" Kaji didn't seem to hear Linger's words, and touched his head in distress. "What should I do? It was enough to have Gion, but now there is a beautiful sister confessing to me." "No, Gion, I still love you the most. She and I are just playing around." Linger held her forehead. "It seems that this uncle has gone too far, and there should be a limit to narcissism. No wonder that Marine's sister didn't accept him." She didn't plan to linger with the wretched uncle in front of her now, and her right hand turned into a long flame. Fire whip. The flame turned into a long whip and whipped Kaji. Kaji reached out and grabbed the fire whip. Linger tried to pull back his arm, but found it was futile. It felt like being clamped by a pair of pliers. Kaji pulled hard, and Linger flew towards Kaji. Seeing Kaji approaching, Linger did not panic, but transformed a flaming dagger in her left hand and stabbed Kaji with the force. Just as the dagger was about to pierce Kaji's forehead turned black. Ding! The dagger pierced Kaji's forehead directly, but did not cause any damage. Seeing this, Linger took advantage of the situation to turn in the air, and kicked Kaji's shoulder with his heel covered with armament hockey. With a bang! Kaji was slightly bent by the kick, and the ice layer under his feet also cracked into countless cracks under this powerful force. Linger took the opportunity to do a backflip and landed on the ground. She looked at the squinting and wretched marine in front of her, and was extremely shocked. After a series of attacks by herself, he only moved half a step. It seems that this love-brained uncle is not as simple as he seems on the surface. However, Kaji was also a little surprised at this time. He did not expect that a little girl in the Luo Te pirates had such strength, and he might not be able to take her down in a short time. Logia demon fruit power, with infinite potential in the future, but she is a great beauty. Linger clenched his right hand in the air, and a flaming spear appeared in his right hand. His upper body turned into flames and rushed towards Jiaji at a very fast speed. His right hand stretched out and turned black, blocking in front of himself. Bang! With a loud noise, the spear and the black arm collided. An invisible shockwave spread around, and Jiaji's hat was also blown away by this shockwave. The ice layer between the two could not bear it and cracked into a crack more than 1 meter wide. The flames under Linger burned fiercely, and the power in his hands increased. The ice layer under Jiaji's feet cracked, and he had to step back several steps. Linger looked at Jiaji, and suddenly her eyes lit up. She squinted her eyes, thinking it was Jiaji's hidden weapon. She squinted her eyes to see that it was Jiaji's shiny head, which was reflecting the sunlight at this time. Kaji looked at where the two were standing, and then looked at the beautiful girl in front of him solemnly, and was shocked beyond words. Just now, even he had to use a lot of strength to block this attack. Chapter 75. Partner Battlefield, Part 3. Nami Battlefield. Pirates, I won't allow you to do whatever you want on this sea. Vice Admiral Flying Squirrel held a knife and looked at Nami in front of him, with a face full of anger. She knew Luo Te's gang, knew that Nami's adoptive mother died because of pirates, and Nami's hometown became a ruined village because of pirates. He didn't know why a person who grew up in such an environment would choose to be a pirate. Nami poked her cheek with her right finger, and her expression was very cute. "Oh, there are so many treasures in this world, all in the hands of pirates, I can't bear it." Hearing Nami's words, Flying Squirrel frowned and thought it was a little funny. "Don't you think your reason is a little funny? Aren't you also a pirate? What's the difference between you and those people?" Nami shook her head and said, "Have you ever seen such a beautiful bad pirate?" Flying Squirrel tightened the knife in his hand. "It seems that we can't reach an agreement." After that, He rushed towards Nami with a knife, and a cold light flashed, and Nami was directly cut into 2 pieces. The 2 parts of the body were broken, and a large amount of white clouds emerged from the cut, fusing the 2 parts together. Nami was a little confused. Doesn't this Marine know hockey? She turned into a dark cloud and appeared above the flying squirrel. Comrade Marine, please pay attention to the thunderstorm. After that, a lightning bolt as thick as an arm fell from the dark cloud and struck the flying squirrel's head. The flying squirrel naturally sensed it. He rolled directly, and the lightning fell on the place where the flying squirrel had just stood. It directly penetrated the ice layer, and the seawater splashed. The flying squirrel stood up and looked at the place where he had just stood. He was scared. He guessed in his heart, if such a thick lightning bolt hits the body, it must be bruised and purple. However, the electric charge accumulated in the dark cloud is far more than just one lightning bolt. Sure enough, lightning bolts as thick as an arm fell like a continuous drizzle. The flying squirrel was in observation hockey. At first, he could shuttle freely in the gaps of lightning, but as the lightning became more and more dense, he had been electrocuted several times, and there was a smell of roasted meat coming from his body. He covered his whole body with armament hockey, rushed under the dark clouds in the lightning, and twisted the knife in his hand into a flower. Nami appeared on the ground with a flash of lightning, but the dark clouds did not dissipate, and countless lightning bolts were still striking. The flying squirrel naturally sensed that Nami had appeared on the ground, and he instantly appeared in front of Nami with a shave. The knife in his hand flashed with cold light and slashed towards Nami's head. Nami reached out from her big white rabbit and took out a short metal stick shining with golden light. She pressed her fingers on it and turned it into a long stick about 1.6 meters long. It was the weather stick that Luo Te gave Nami as a weapon before. Nami held the weather stick with both hands to block the flying squirrel's knife. Nami's legs were bent by the huge force, and the ice under her feet could not hold it and cracked. She quickly turned into a white cloud and floated to the side. Staring at the Marine Vice Admiral with a mustache in front of him, "Why don't you show any mercy to women?" The flying squirrel grinned, and the parts of his body that were hit by lightning felt a bit hot and burning. Looking at the very young woman in front of him, he had no idea that she was so strong. He was almost electrocuted into a barbecue. It seems that everyone in Luo Te's group cannot be underestimated. If you are not careful, you will fall into an irretrievable situation. Franky battlefield. Franky looked at the Vice Admiral in front of him who was holding a cigar, and asked with a questioning face, "Brother, are you happy to meet me? You are smiling so brightly?" Hua Xiaoshan always squinted his eyes like that, and was born with a smiling face. He was often teased by his soldiers as the Vice Admiral with a smiling face. Looking at the muscular man in front of him who was only wearing a pair of panties, he asked, "Pervert, who are you?" Franky raised his hands above his head and made a signature gesture. "Oh, I am Uncle Franky, super. Don't praise me casually like this, I will be proud." Hua Xiaoshan naturally saw that the man in front of him had a special body, not like a normal person's body, and thought it would not be easy to deal with. The information they received did not say that Luo Te's group would have such a pervert. "Are you also a member of Luo Te's group? This is a private matter between the world government and Luo Te's group. Do you want to get involved?" Franky put down his arms, and the whole person looked a little angry, and a low pressure rose above his head. "Hey, brother, are you looking down on me? I am the chief engineer of Luo Te." Hua Xiaoshan's smile disappeared at this moment, and he showed a serious expression. "Are you ready?" He pulled the knife out of the scabbard and pointed it at Franky. Franky laughed. "Begay, who do you think I am?" He stretched out his hand and pulled out a lightsaber from his back, and his feet were spraying air. He appeared in front of Hua Xiaoshan in an instant, raised the knife and chopped at Hua Xiaoshan's head. Hua Xiaoshan didn't know what Franky's ability was, nor did he know that Franky was so fast. But as the elite Vice Admiral of Naval Headquarters, he reacted quickly, raised his sword with both hands over his head and barely blocked Franky's knife. However, he was wrong. The lightsaber in Franky's hand was not an ordinary sword. The lightsaber was hollowed directly at the place where Hua Xiaoshan's sword met, and it actually passed through Hua Xiaoshan's sword and chopped down at his head. Hua Xiaoshan looked at the strange scene in front of him and pushed forward with his feet, sliding back 10 meters. Franky's lightsaber was unobstructed and fell directly on the ice. Instead of cutting it, it melted the ice and opened a huge crack. Hua Xiaoshan, who had just stabilized his body, naturally saw it. He was extremely surprised. "This is not a sword, is it a laser?" Franky looked up at Hua Xiaoshan. Snap, he couldn't help but snap his fingers. "Bingo, I guessed it, but there is no reward." Hua Xiaoshan's breathing became rapid after the answer was confirmed. How is it possible? In this world, only Vegapunk, a scientist of the world government, should have mastered this technology. Franky smiled. "Who am I? I am the famous Franky, the chief engineer and inventor of the Luo Te pirates, okay?" Hua Xiaoshan frowned. He knew that if he let the man in front of him develop, he would definitely become a big disaster for the world government. He appeared in front of Franky with a shave, and raised his hand to slash. Franky doesn't know observation hockey yet, so by the time he realized it, Hua Xiaoshan's sword had already pierced his abdomen. Hua Xiaoshan was surprised, not only because the blade felt a little strange, but also because of the calm expression of the man in front of him. He quickly dodged Franky's hand. However, before he could stand firm, he saw a laser beam shooting at him from Franky's palm. Even though he only had time to move half of his body to the side, the laser that was originally shot at his heart directly pierced his shoulder. A strong burning sensation spread from his shoulder to his whole body. He raised his head and looked at the man in the distance. There was no wound on his body. It had been completely healed. If it weren't for the hole in his clothes, he might have thought that the sword he just hit was an illusion. Chapter 76. The End of the War. Tuo Ma Si Shu Chao Zanju Dian Rakuten Travel HK. 184 Hong Kong dollars Rakuten Travel. Ri Ben Xing Ne Ling Xian Wang Sheng Lu Sheng Shi. Luo Te looked up and saw several warships coming from the sea in the distance. At the same time, in his super hard net, he sensed a figure flying towards him at a very fast speed. He knew that it was Garp, and there was a strong man who was no weaker than Garp a few hundred meters behind Garp, also rushing towards this side quickly. In just a moment, a dark fist wrapped with black brushed lightning was about to appear in front of Luo Te. He hurriedly punched it. Bang! The fists of the two did not touch each other, and a strong momentum spread out from the two people as the center. Akainu under him was also blown to the side. This momentum spread directly to the entire battlefield. The soldiers below the level of Rear Admiral who were close to him foamed at the mouth and fell to the ground unconscious. Even some Rear Admirals had their legs softened at this time, and their faces were covered with sweat. Although they did not faint, they had no fighting power at all. As this momentum rushed up to the sky, it directly split the sky in half. Those soldiers who had not fainted looked up in disbelief, looking at this natural disaster-like scene, and talked about it for a while. What is this? Conqueror's Hockey, who is it? Luo Te. Who is fighting Luo Te? What a terrible momentum. Look, that is the hero Vice Admiral Garp. That Luo Te can actually fight Vice Admiral Garp, what a terrible strength. Can we really win against such a powerful enemy? Seeing Luo Te's strong strength, many marine soldiers have already retreated. Don't talk nonsense, we have 3 admirals and the hero Garp here, and it is said that even the marshal has rushed over. Many soldiers heard this and ignited their fighting spirit. After a long fight, Luo Te and Garp each took a step back. Luo Te looked up at the old man Garp in front of him. Long time no see, old man Garp. You haven't aged at all. You're still so young. Garp clenched his fist and laughed. Ha ha ha, I'm old, and my strength is not as good as before. Luo Te pursed his lips and secretly complained in his heart. It's okay for you to say this in front of me, but if you say this in front of old man Whitebeard, Whitebeard will be mad to death. Luo Te sensed that many powerful auras were all rushing towards this side. He knew that he couldn't delay any longer. He pinched the notice into several electromagnetic waves and transmitted them to the ears of all his companions. Garp had seen Luo Te's method last time, and he knew that this should be Luo Te's way of notifying his companions to evacuate. Ha 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 ha, I'm here, Luo Te. Your strength has been consumed a lot. Don't think about running away. Luo Te shook his head and said, I don't plan to run away. I still want to continue the fight with you that we didn't finish last time. After that, Luo Te turned around and kicked Garp in the face. Garp laughed, rolled up his sleeves and fought with Luo Te. Bang! 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 For a while, the figures of the two flashed frequently in the air. Bang! At a certain moment, Garp was smashed to the ice. He supported his knees with his hands and raised his head, looking at the young figure floating in the sky. He was surprised to find that after the last fight between the two, Luo Te's strength had risen to an incomparable level. It felt like facing the young Roger, even stronger than Roger. Luo Te slowly floated down, and his breathing was a little rapid. He looked at the old man in front of him and said, What do you think? Do you still think you can stop me now? Ha ha ha, you little brat, you are still a little naive to lecture me. Garp clenched his fists and made a crackling sound, without any fear on his face. Luo Te then used the super heart net to sense and found that his companions had already boarded the skybreaker. He said hello to Garp. Okay, I'm leaving, bye. After saying that, he disappeared from the spot with an electromagnetic teleport. Garp looked at the place where Luo Te had just stood and scratched his forehead. Why is it like this again? He escaped again. Then he laughed. Ha 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 ha, what a capable kid. Sengoku appeared at this time. What's the matter? Did he escape again? Damn it, Garp, did you really work hard? Garp touched his head, facing Sengoku's accusatory tone. He could only say helplessly. It's not that I don't want to stop it, but Luo Te's strength has surpassed you and me. I want to stop it, but I'm powerless. Sengoku looked at his old friend with a serious face for a while. Alas, he sighed deeply. He knew that Garp would not say this for no reason. Since Garp said this, it proves that Luo Te's strength has really surpassed them. Garp looked at his comrade and laughed. The most important thing now is not to chase Luo Te, but to find Admiral and Vice Admiral first. Hearing this, Sengoku quickly unfolded observation haki to sense the situation on the battlefield. Gradually, veins on his forehead began to bulge, and his brows were furrowed deeper and deeper. Sengoku looked at the people in front of him, and his facial features were almost wrinkled. Akainu was lying in a pool of blood, but at least he was conscious. Kizaru's clothes were torn and he looked like a beggar. However, his whole body was exhausted and his legs were bleeding, but he didn't look seriously injured. Aokiji was the worst. When he was found, he was carried here. He was unconscious and one of his legs was broken. Gion was also pale and his hands were covered in blood. Kaji's hat was gone, revealing a big, shiny head. He was breathing slightly, but he was not injured. Flying Squirrel was sitting in a wheelchair, with many parts of his body charred. People who knew him had to look at him for a long time before they recognized him. Hua Xiaoshan's right hand was gone, leaving only his sleeves. Staff officer, he sighed, forget it, let's go back to Marineford and make a long-term plan. Otherwise, Kong will go berserk. Hearing this, Sengoku and Garp nodded. For this operation, the world government sent Kong, the commander-in-chief of the entire army, to Marineford to guard. Sengoku knew that Kong was a hot-tempered guy, and if he went back late, he really didn't know what he would be scolded for. When he was an admiral, he was scolded by Marshal Kong a lot. Sengoku immediately waved his hand and commanded the fleet to rush back to Marineford. 4,000 meters high, the skybreaker. Luo Te looked at his companions and said, "How is it? Everyone is not injured?" Crow nodded and said, "Fortunately, there are senzu beans, and the injuries have been completely recovered." Luo Te was relieved after hearing this. Nami and Linger each held Luo Te's arm. Nami said, "Luo Te, you don't know how scared I was. I almost didn't fight." Linger also echoed, "Oh, my opponent is a wretched man, not only lustful but also delusional. I almost." Seeing the two beauties crying about their experiences, Luo Te could only comfort them. Ace Bagu was talking to Franky at this time. He was still a little curious about why Franky became like this. Zoro wiped the knife, thinking that a woman not only had great sword skills, but also possessed extremely terrifying power. Even he could only cope with it. He murmured, "Next time we meet, the balance of victory will tilt towards me." Enel was arguing with Crocodile, "Stinky Crocodile, if you hadn't stopped me every time, that Aokiji would have turned into a piece of charcoal." Crocodile said, "Yeah, if I hadn't saved you several times, you might have been frozen into an ice sculpture." Crow sat aside with a calm face, reviewing the whole battle between himself and Kizaru. The Seven Water City is below, we are back. Chapter 77. Safe return to the Seven Waters City lifted by the white clouds, the skybreaker slowly landed at the port of the Seven Waters City. At this time, many people had gathered at the port to welcome their mayor. Because Franky's family told them that Ace Bagu would be back today. They didn't know that Ace Bagu was captured by the world government and naively thought that he was really invited by the world government to build ships. And today is the guy's day mentioned by Kiwi and Maz. Franky is in a good mood now. Ace Bagu has been rescued, and Ace Bagu's injuries have fully recovered. He walked to the bow and looked at the dense crowd, making a symbolic gesture. "So many people come to welcome me. It seems that I am really super this week, making me like a big star, annoying." Linger looked at this extremely narcissistic pervert and couldn't help but complain. "Don't be too narcissistic, people are here to welcome their mayor, so don't go forward with a licking face, okay?" Hearing this, Franky was like a frost-bitten eggplant, squatting on the lawn and drawing circles. Luo Te looked at Franky with a smile on his face. He was really perverted and funny like in his previous life, and he was born to be the Atmosphere Group. He turned to Ace Bagu and said, "You are so popular. Almost all the residents of the city came to welcome you, the mayor. I remember that you seem to have been the mayor for a short time." Ace Bagu stretched out his finger to scratch his forehead and said embarrassedly, "Well, don't say that, I'm just an ordinary shipbuilder." Luo Te shook his head and scolded with a smile, "Okay, don't be falsely modest here, get off." As the group slowly got off the boat, the crowd also separated into a path. Luo Te looked at the people who greeted him, feeling uncomfortable all over and itchy. He couldn't help but pout and thought to himself, do those big stars in the previous life feel the same way? Seeing Ace Bagu and Luo Te and his group getting off the boat, people were extremely excited and shouted, "Mayor Ace Bagu, congratulations on your return." "Mayor Ace Bagu, is this job hard? Mayor, I heard that you fired your secretary. Although my granddaughter is not very old, she is still very good at the job of secretary." "Lord Luo Te, do you have a girlfriend? Lord Luo Te, will you live in the Seven Waters City?" Listening to the words coming from the crowd, Luo Te wanted to escape from the place that made him, a socially anxious person, feel extremely uncomfortable. However, Franky, Crocodile and Enel were very happy to greet everyone. Finally escaped from the crowded crowd, Luo Te took a deep breath. He felt more tired than fighting with 3 admirals at the same time. Nami and Linger were still holding Luo Te's arms tightly at this time. Obviously they had not come out of the tension just now. Because when passing through the crowd just now, many girls looked at Luo Te with a tearful look in their eyes. It felt like Luo Te was going to be eaten on the spot. "Yeah, this feeling is really good. This is simply the greatest recognition of me." The god, Enel seemed to be still immersed in the enthusiasm just now. Robin tilted his head to look at Luo Te, and couldn't help but smile. What's wrong with our Captain Luo Te who is so powerful outside? It seems that something is wrong. Luo Te looked at Robin, shook his head helplessly and said, Robin, can you stop making fun of me? You know that I am most afraid of this kind of occasion. At this time, Kiwi and Maz said, Ace Bagasong, Brother Franky, Lord Luo Te, and everyone, we have prepared a welcoming banquet for you. Franky's eyes lit up. Super. Do you have iced cola? Kiwi nodded and said, yes, iced cola, as much as you want. Ha ha ha, Kiwi is so grateful to you. Hearing this, Franky was as happy as a memory alloy cyborg weighing only more than 2 tons. At the banquet, Luo Te forked a piece of fish and put it in his mouth, looking at Ace Bagu who was sitting in the upper seat and asked, Ace Bagu, do you want to move the 7 Waters City to Sky Island? Ace Bagu fed a piece of cheese to the little white mouse on the table next to him, and then gently touched the little white mouse, making it squeak. He looked up at Luo Te and shook his head. Well, I think now the world government and Marine have already known that the 7 Waters are the territory of Luo Te and his gang. Due to your strength, they should not act rashly. Luo Te puffed his cheeks and responded, don't underestimate the world government. Their hidden forces are far beyond what you and I can guess. Who knows if they will let the 7 Waters fall into war for Pluton? Ace Bagu looked at Luo Te with a serious look on his face. Since they all know that I may have Pluton drawings, they should know that as long as they are normal people, they will not choose to put such a dangerous thing on themselves. And the fact is that this is true, so they should not do this. After a pause, he continued, and after this incident, I believe that the reputation of the 7 Waters and Luo Te's gang will reach an unprecedented level, and then the business orders of the 7 Waters will definitely increase a lot. The quality of life of the people will also reach a higher level. Luo Te stared at Ace Bagu for a while and sighed, alas. He knew since Ace Bagu had made up his mind, he did not force him to move the 7 Waters to Sky Island. At this time, Klo said, Luo Te, we don't have to worry about this. After all, the people of the world government are not fools. They must know that Pluton's design drawings have been obtained by us. The world government knows that we are the most threatening, so they will naturally not embarrass the 7 Waters. Luo Te pondered for a while, nodded, and looked at Ace Bagu and said, then you should pay attention at all times. After the banquet, Luo Te and his party returned to the single suite prepared by Ace Bagu for them. After a whole day of fighting and air travel, everyone was very tired. Although the senzu beans could restore injuries and physical strength, the mental fatigue still existed. Except for Zoro, who returned to the gravity room of the Skybreaker by himself, everyone stayed in the room to rest. The night was as cool as water. The 7 Waters, which was originally bustling during the day, now only had the sound of water flowing around their ears. In the deep blue sky in the distance, a full moon hangs. The bright moonlight gently sprinkles on the 7 Water City, adding a sense of peace and tranquility to this huge water city. Dong dong dong. Is it Robin-chan? Chapter 78. Robin and Luo Te. Luo Te waved and opened the door of the room, and saw Robin slowly walking in from the entrance. Her high heels rhythmically tapped on the wooden floor, making a pleasant sound. The moonlight shone on Robin through the large window, creating a faint haze. Unlike Nami and Linger's girlishness, Robin exuded a mature woman's temperament from head to toe, and her charming breath came to her face. Luo Te was stunned for a moment, recalling that in her previous life, Robin was tanned when she was still in Alabasta. However, at this moment, her skin was whiter than snow and jade, and she was completely different from her previous life. I don't know if it was added by the animation team or because she was exposed to the sun for a long time in Alabasta. And now Robin is even more beautiful than 2 years later in her previous life. Robin slowly walked to Luo Te and said, Luo Te, thank you. The fragrance of the woman after the bath was fragrant, and he obviously didn't hear what Robin said clearly. He came to his senses and quickly touched his nose to ease the awkward situation. Glancing out the window, she said, Robin, what's wrong? Seeing Luo Te like this, Robin chuckled, I came to thank you. Luo Te turned around and looked at Robin, asking in confusion, thank me for what? Robin walked to the sofa, poured herself a cup of coffee, and slowly walked to the window. She recalled the sea of fire in Ohara, and the terrified faces that disappeared in the sea of fire. The desperate shouts and endless panic. Dr. Clover's exhortations and unwillingness. Her mother Orovia's apologies. Marine Vice Admiral Saul's hopes and exhortations. Her own wanderings over the years. Luo Te did not disturb Robin, and just stayed with Robin quietly. After a long time, Robin slowly turned around and looked at Luo Te. What surprised Luo Te was that Robin's face was filled with a happy smile at this moment. Robin stood on tiptoe and gently left a lip print on Luo Te's cheek, and then said, Thank you, Luo Te. Thank you for giving me a real home. The bright moonlight shone into Robin's eyes from the window, and was crushed into stars. She slowly leaned on Luo Te's chest. Thank you, you gave me a chance to be reborn. Luo Te stretched out his hand and slowly embraced Robin's delicate body. He knew that Robin was a person who looked strong on the outside but was very soft on the inside. In his previous life, he had been unable to let go for a long time after seeing Robin's miserable gentleman, until Luffy and his group's sincerity knocked open her once hard shell. Only then did she show her gentle side to the audience. Luo Te knew that Robin was originally a little girl who could act like a spoiled child to her parents and ask for gifts, but the world government turned this innocent little girl into an orphan with no one to rely on. She could only travel between various pirate groups and merchant ships. At first, Robin responded with sincerity and wanted to get her own partner, but the cruelty of the pirate world often lies in this. She had never met a true friend, so she could only bury Saul's message deep in her heart. Until Luo Te appeared in front of her like a savior hero, stepping on a colorful cloud, and said, "Thank you for your hard work over the years," which directly broke her disguise for so many years. At that moment, she not only believed Saul's words, but also fell deeply in love with this man who looked 7 or 8 years younger than her. However, he did not dare to easily express his feelings to Luo Te, because he knew that it was rare for him to gain the friendship of Luo Te and others. How could she dare to hope to get Luo Te's love? Luo Te hugged this weak woman tightly, wishing to integrate her into his body. The woman's wet hair gave off a faint fragrance, which seemed to light a fire in Luo Te's body, making him feel extremely hot. He made up his mind, "The takeaway has been delivered to my door, how can I not eat it?" Luo Te smiled, his white teeth flashing an unknown light in the moonlight, and said, "Then how do you want to thank me? Do you want to send me away with just a simple thank you?" Robin stood up and whispered in Luo Te's ear, "Then how do you want me to thank you, Captain Luo Te?" The hot air from her mouth was like a dogtail grass, tickling Luo Te's ears and giving him goosebumps. "MD. I can't bear it anymore, I'm not a ninja." Luo Te reached out and hugged Robin's slender waist, pulling her in front of him. "What do you think?" However, Robin chuckled and disappeared into Luo Te's arms as petals. The figure appeared at the door. Luo Te was surprised at first, then looked at Robin. Luo Te appeared in front of Robin in an instant, stretched out his right index finger to hook Robin's chin, and raised the corner of his mouth. "Woman, you are playing with fire." Snap. Luo Te stretched out his left hand and snapped his fingers, covering the entire room with an electromagnetic barrier. Then he picked up Robin as a princess. "Ah, you pressed my hair, 10,000 words omitted here." The next day, the morning sun gently sprinkled into Luo Te's room. Luo Te frowned and slowly opened his eyes, Robin's peaceful sleeping face. Looking around, the messy room came into view. A touch of bright red was particularly eye-catching on the light blue bed sheet. Luo Te gently brushed away the messy hair on Robin's forehead, leaned over and kissed her gently. Then he covered Robin with the quilt, then he got up and went out. After the door was closed, Robin slowly opened his eyes, moved his body slightly, and his mouth curled up unconsciously. "What a rude captain. Nami and Linger originally asked me to go shopping today, but now I can't get out of bed." However, a happy smile appeared on his face, and then he shrank into the quilt, like a child who got candy as a reward from his parents. As soon as Luo Te walked out of the door, he met Nami and Linger who were about to go shopping. Nami came to Luo Te, sniffing here and there with her small nose. Looking at Nami's action, Luo Te seemed to be at the scene of execution, a face full of embarrassment. After a long time, Nami raised her head, pouted her little mouth and looked at Luo Te. "You smell like Robin's perfume." Luo Te stretched out his hand and scratched Nami's nose. "You have a good nose." Linger stood aside, with his hands folded in front of his chest, and also looked like he was going to ask for an explanation. Luo Te looked up and saw Iceberg being besieged by someone on the side of the waterway. He waved his hand over there. "Hey, Iceberg," then he disappeared from the spot. Nami looked at the place where Luo Te disappeared, clenched her fist, stamped her feet, and puffed up her cheeks in a good-looking manner. "HMPH, I will never admit defeat. Linger, let's go shopping." Then she took Linger's arm and went to the street. Chapter 79. Meeting at Marineford Naval Headquarters, Marineford. The atmosphere in the huge office was a bit solemn. The soldiers who participated in the fight against Luo Te 2 days ago were sitting inside. However, there were 2 conspicuous people among them, Akainu and Aokiji. Akainu was wrapped in bandages and sitting in a wheelchair at the side. Even though he was so seriously injured, he still had a cigar in his mouth, and he was an old smoker. Aokiji was also wrapped in bandages and sitting on the other side. Among the 3 admirals, only Kizaru had a bandage on his right leg. Sengoku sat on the main seat and looked around. Seeing that the soldiers who participated in that battle were more or less injured, he couldn't help but sighed. "Well, I believe everyone knows the purpose of calling everyone to the meeting this time, right?" Hearing this, everyone nodded, and Garp, who was always a little jumpy, also had a serious look on his face at this time. After getting everyone's response, Sengoku said, "Okay, let's talk about our opinions on the Luo Te pirates." At this moment, Akainu's right fist turned into lava and melted the wheelchair armrest. When he mentioned Luo Te, he was angry. "We should defeat Luo Te before they recover." Hearing Akainu's words, Sengoku couldn't help but frown. He didn't say anything to attack this diligent marine admiral. However, Aokiji said, "Sakazuki, look at where we have the manpower to deal with Luo Te now. We seem to be more seriously injured than them. It seems that there is no difference between going to them and seeking death in our current state. Or can you defeat them alone?" Bang! Hearing this, Akainu raised his fist and hit the desk. Are you scared by Luo Te's group? A Marine Admiral is afraid of pirates. It's really embarrassing for our Marines. Aokiji laughed after hearing Akainu's words. If we go against Luo Te's group in this state, not to mention that we may not be able to escape easily, do you know how many casualties the soldiers will suffer? Do you just ignore the lives of the soldiers? If Akainu's face was not wrapped in bandages, everyone would have seen his angry expression. He snorted and said, the Marines' duty is to fight pirates. Sacrifices for peace on the sea are inevitable. Aokiji couldn't help but slap the desk. It seems that I still can't agree with your point of view. Listening to the two admirals bickering, the rest of the soldiers were watching their noses and their hearts, and dared not interrupt. Sengoku was also rubbing his temples because of the headache of the two. Sakazuki, Kuzan, both of you should stop talking. We are here to discuss Luo Te's gang, not to quarrel. Kizaru spoke up to stop them. Akainu and Aokiji snorted at each other and walked away. Sengoku said at this time, you all have direct experience of fighting against Luo Te and his gang. Let's talk about your opponents first, starting with Akainu. After Sengoku's voice fell, everyone's eyes fell on Akainu. Akainu took a puff of cigar and slowly said, Luo Te. Although I don't want to admit it, he is a meticulous and extremely powerful pirate. Grandmaster Conqueror's Haki and Devil Fruit abilities are also developed to a very advanced level. He paused, suppressed the anger in his eyes and continued, he is indeed much stronger than me, stronger than Sengoku-san and Garp-san. Hearing Akainu's description, the soldiers couldn't help but take a breath. They knew Luo Te would be strong, but they didn't expect him to be stronger than Admiral. Admiral Akainu would not easily admit that others were stronger than him. Sengoku frowned, then did he have any strange actions? He didn't believe that Luo Te was really stronger than them at the age of 18. Akainu recalled the scene of his battle with Luo Te, his eyes lit up. Indeed, he seemed to have stuffed a strange black pill into his mouth, and after eating it, his momentum and injuries were completely restored to their original state. However, after hearing Akainu's words, Sengoku stood up directly, what? Akainu thought for a while and said, I guess it is a magical recovery pill. After taking it, you can instantly restore your state to the peak moment. I just don't know if there are any side effects. Sengoku slowly sat down and waved his hand. We will ask the chief military doctor of Marine to discuss this matter later. Next, Kizaru, you can tell me about your opponent. Kizaru put away the nail clippers in his hand, nodded to Sengoku and said, my opponent is called Kuro, who has the Zone Devil Fruit Mythical Beast Bird Fruit Pung form. Except for the three admirals and Sengoku who already knew the news, the other soldiers were all a little shocked when they heard this. The Mythical Beast Devil Fruit is a devil fruit that is even rarer than Logia. Kizaru touched the bandage on his leg and continued. Kuro has a speed almost comparable to mine, and his wings have extremely strong defensive power. His mind is extremely clear and smart. He should be the core figure of Luo Te's group. Sengoku nodded and said, originally, Kuro was just a small pirate in East Blue, and I haven't heard that he has eaten devil fruit. Could it be that it happened after he joined the Luo Te pirates? In this case, it seems that they should have special means to obtain devil fruit. Then he turned his head to look at Aokiji. Aokiji nodded and began to review his battles with Crocodile and Enel. First, let's talk about Crocodile. I thought his strength would stagnate after joining Shichibukai, but he didn't give up training. He now has mastered the two-color Haki. Even if I fight alone, I dare not say that I can easily win. Let's talk about Enel. He is a person who needs our attention more than Crocodile. Especially the Thunder Fruit, which has extremely strong attack power and is as fast as Borsalino. After listening to Aokiji's sharing, Sengoku frowned even deeper. After that, Gion, Cake and others also shared their opponents. Finally, Sengoku slammed the table. What a terrible group of people. 4 Logia Devil Fruits, a Zone Devil Fruit Mythical Beast, a strange cyborg, a 3-sword swordsman, and it seems that Nico Robin is also a member of them. Garp stuffed a piece of senbei into his mouth and said, it seems that we can no longer treat this group of people as ordinary pirates. They are at least Vice Admiral level strength, and they really deserve the title of Emperor of the Sea. Staff Officer Suru also sighed and said, I hope they won't mess around. But we shouldn't let others' prestige rise. Let's discuss the countermeasures carefully next. Chapter 80. The world-famous Luo Te Gang. The sky was clear and the waves were rippling, on the skybreaker. Luo Te and his party rested in the Seven Waters City for 4 days, then said goodbye to Ace Bagu and headed for Sabayati Archipelago. During these days, Luo Te also lived a very comfortable life, and of course Robin's complexion became better and better. Luo Te planned to go to New World first, and then move Sky Island thereafter gaining a foothold. After all, if he was in paradise, he would always be under the eyes of the world government, which would be inconvenient to do things. He did not choose to fly directly to New World. He still planned to go to the sea. Although he might encounter marine and pirates, it was not a problem for now. Luo Te, do you think I look better in this one or that one? On the deck, Nami was wearing a bikini, picked up 2 suspenders and gestured in front of Luo Te. Looking at the cool Nami, Luo Te felt that his nose was about to bleed. Nami had become a little strange in the past few days, always showing off her figure in front of him from time to time. He knew what Nami was thinking, but the little girl was too young, so he couldn't bear to do it. As a big otaku in his previous life, he didn't know how to answer such a question, so he could only smile and say, "You look good in anything." Nami stepped forward and asked, "What if you don't wear it?" Luo Te immediately beat his chest and stamped his feet. I think it should be very. Nami, look, the pigeon is here. As he said, Luo Te pointed to the sky. Luo Te and his group all gathered on the deck, and the latest newspapers were placed in front of everyone. As expected, the title was Luo Te's gang again. But the same thing as before was that this report was about Luo Te's gang going to Enies lobby to rob world-class criminals, and finally 3 admirals were dispatched but failed to stop Luo Te's gang. Luo Te could imagine the sensation caused when this report was sent to the world, because it clearly described the strength of Luo Te's gang. He continued to flip to the back. He knew that after such a large-scale report, there would be a bounty order from everyone. Sure enough, several bounties fell out at the end of the newspaper. Luo Te placed these bounties in front of everyone at once. Luo Te only dead 3 billion. Shenpeng crocodile, dead or alive, 1,070,000,000. Crocodile, dead or alive, 845 million. Thor Enel, dead or alive 840 million. Roronoa Zoro dead or alive, 760 million. White Fist Nami dead or alive, 670 million. Fire Fist Amara Linger, dead or alive, 625 million. Pervert Franky only dead 600. Devil's Son Nico Robin dead or alive 200. Mira, did you see it? Franky pointed at his name with his bounty. Everyone looked over. Linger shook his head. What's the matter? Isn't your bounty higher than mine? Is there anything strange? Tisk tisk tisk. Franky stretched out his right index finger and shook it in front of Linger. No. Didn't you see the prefix of my name? Everyone saw the 2 big words, pervert, and Linger pouted. Franky was holding his bounty order and was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. Now the whole world knows that I'm a pervert. That's great. Enel ran to Crocodile with his bounty order, with a look of dissatisfaction on his face. Why is your bounty higher than mine? I don't accept it. You are just a stinky sand crocodile. How can you be as handsome as me? Crocodile tilted his head and looked at Enel. Why? Do you want to practice with me? Chloe interrupted and said, okay, you two, don't compete with each other in everything. This bounty order is not only related to your strength, but also has many factors to consider. And the world government doesn't know our details, so it can only be used as a reference. Although Enel and Chloe don't like each other, they are still quite convinced by Chloe. Not only because Chloe is smart, but also because his strength is second only to Luo Te in their group. At this time, Chloe looked at Luo Te's bounty order and said, we are now a big pirate group. Maybe our hard power is comparable to or even exceeds the 4 emperors in the New World, but our soft power is still a little worse. Robin said at this time, for the time being, we can only speculate on the strength of the 4 emperors through newspapers, so everything can only be known after we arrive in the New World. Luo Te nodded. 4 emperors are not our target. As long as they don't block our way, there is no need to list them as enemies. Then Luo Te's expression became very fierce, but if they block our way, we can only ask them to sink into the sea. New World. Moby Dick. Dad, there is news about Luo Te again. Pineapple Head ran to Whitebeard on the deck with a newspaper. However, an excited voice sounded at the side. What? Marco, is it Luo Te from East Blue? What news? Let me see. Whitebeard laughed. Gulala, Marco, just show it to Ace first. Didn't you notice that there are many newspapers about Luo Te beside Ace's bed? Ace ran to Marco, took the newspaper from Marco's hand and read it carefully. The more he looked at Ace, the more wonderful his expression became. He murmured, Kukui, is Luo Te so powerful? Marco stood aside and looked at Ace. He knew that Luo Te and Ace were almost the same age. He thought Ace was crazy because of Luo Te. He couldn't help but remind him, Ace, you are also very young. You are already one of the strongest people in this age group. Don't be discouraged. You are the Golden Emperor. However, Ace seemed not to hear Marco's words. He picked up Luo Te's bounty and read it again and again. He murmured in his heart, I wonder who is more powerful, Luo Te or Dad. One is his captain and father, the other is his master. He couldn't help but compare the two. After a while, Ace handed the newspaper in his hand to Whitebeard. Whitebeard laughed. Gulala, Luo Te is quite capable. New World. Red Force. Red-haired Shanks put the newspaper on the table and slowly walked to the side of the ship. Luo Te, I hope you don't mess around, otherwise this world will go crazy.